1. My husband, out of character, gave me a diamond ring. I took it with tears in my eyes, and all the hurt I had been feeling vanished in an instant. It wasn't until then that I noticed something strange happening to my body. I tried to struggle, but I found I had even lost the ability to blink. Hearing my mother-in-law and husband's excited shouts beside me, I finally realized. It turned out my mother-in-law had bound herself to a body-swapping system, and the one now occupying my body was my father-in-law. When I opened my eyes again and looked at the diamond ring my husband was holding, I couldn't help feeling a chill creep over me. If that's how it is, then no one can blame me for being ruthless. 1. Xiao, what's wrong? Are you just too nervous? I turned to look at him stiffly. A smile played at the corners of Zhang Hao's mouth as he held a red velvet box, the diamond ring inside throwing off a blinding sparkle under the lights. The sound I heard before I died. Mother-in-law hugged my body with delight. Old man, did it work? Is that really you? Zhang Hao was smiling broadly as well. Dad, it's good that you're back. It's just hard on you. After this, you'll have to live in Luo Xiu's body. Back then, I wanted to scream, I wanted to break free, but I had already lost even the ability to blink on my own. I suddenly reached out and knocked the box away. Zhang Hao stared wide-eyed and immediately picked up the box, his tone full of irritation. Luo Xiu, what are you doing? I only did this because I thought about how you've been wrong these past 2 years. Mom and I both know we were in the wrong. This ring was something Mom and I scrimped and saved for, finally managing to buy for you. It's at least a little compensation from us. From now on, let's be a family and live a good life together. Live a good life together. I let out a cold laugh in my heart, trading my life to bring back his dead father. That's the good life they wanted. The despair and chill of being on the brink of death still hadn't faded. Hearing what he said, I felt my stomach churn, and I realized I couldn't reveal myself yet. I forced myself to lower my head and avoid his gaze. When I looked up again, I had already managed to force out a tearful smile. Honey, this is far too precious. I reached out and carefully took the box. The moment my fingertips touched the cold diamonds, my heart turned just as cold. I love it. Hearing that, Zhang Hao visibly breathed a sigh of relief, his face breaking into a broad smile. As long as you like it, that's all that matters. He reached out, trying to pull me into his arms. I instinctively stiffened, then forced myself to relax and leaned into his embrace. Xiao, his mother said with a smile as she came out of the kitchen, carrying a fruit platter. How's he worked so hard for this ring? If I ever did anything wrong before, don't take it to heart. Her eyes kept darting over the diamond ring on my hand again and again. In my past life, because I loved Zhang Hao too much, I was especially lenient with his family too. I was so stupid it was beyond saving too. I suppressed the chill in my heart and forced out a flattered, pleasantly surprised look. Mom, don't say that. We're family. I stopped taking it to heart long ago. Mother-in-law beamed even more brightly, the wrinkles on her face all bunching together. Good girl, look how skinny you are. I'll make you delicious food every day from now on, and I'll make sure you get your strength back. I nodded, smoothing my hair as I hid the hatred in my eyes. Dinner was indeed very lavish. Braised pork and chicken soup. The little table was almost completely covered. If this had happened before, I wouldn't even have dared to imagine it. In my previous life, I got carried away by this sudden kindness and foolishly thought my hard times were finally over. While we were eating, my mother-in-law's eyes hardly left the ring on my finger. I hesitated for 2 seconds, set down my chopsticks, and gently turned the ring. Honey, Mom, to be honest, we're not exactly well off. It was too much of a splurge to buy this. I'm thinking maybe we should sell it instead. We could get quite a bit for it. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Hao raised his voice sharply. This is the thoughtfulness from Mom and me. It's meant to make it up to you. How can we sell it? His mother also immediately put down her bowl and chopsticks and said anxiously, That's right, Xiao, we absolutely can't sell this. This is a family heirloom and a token of our feelings. She patted her chest, looking as if she could hardly catch her breath. Xiao, Mom knows you've been wrong these past 2 years. It was my fault. I was muddle-headed. Now I've come to my senses. You're a good daughter-in-law, and our Zhang family has treated you unfairly. You must keep this ring. Zhang Hao nodded. Exactly, Xiao, think about it. You came all the way here to marry into our family. There was no bride price, no wedding. But you've always had a place in our hearts. Now that things are finally getting a little better, the first thing we thought of was making it up to you. Watching the two of them trade lines back and forth, the chill in my heart grew colder and colder. I pretended to be moved by them, my eyes turning slightly red. Honey, Mom, don't be mad. I was just speaking offhand. I won't sell it. I'll wear it and never take it off for the rest of my life. Hearing my assurance, the mother and son exchanged a glance and immediately broke into smiles. Zhang Hao picked up a piece of meat and put it in my bowl. That's right, eat up. I kept my head down and ate small mouthfuls of rice. After dinner, I took the initiative to get up and clear the dishes and chopsticks, moving briskly and continuing to play the role of the dutiful daughter-in-law I used to be. My mother-in-law pretended to come help, but I stopped her. Mom, please rest. I'll take care of this. She patted my shoulder. Xiao is really becoming more and more considerate. After I finished tidying up, I wiped my hands. Honey, Mom, I'm a little tired today, so I want to turn in early. Zhang Hao nodded. His mother-in-law waved me off kindly. Hurry up, go on, I answered and turned to head into the bedroom. 3. The next morning, just as dawn was breaking, I got up first. It was still too early, and most of the shops hadn't opened yet, but I vaguely remembered there was a jewelry store that was open around the clock. Fortunately, I didn't have to search for long before I spotted a shop with its lights on. The saleswoman behind the counter was very polite. Hello, how may I help you? I steadied my nerves. Hello, I'd like to inquire about having a ring custom made. Certainly. Do you have a rough idea of the style, or perhaps a design sketch? After a moment's hesitation, I slipped the diamond ring off my ring finger. I want an exact copy. The sales associate took the ring in surprise, studied it carefully, and then looked at me again. I forced myself to stay calm. This ring has special meaning for me, and I'm afraid I'll lose it in everyday wear, so I was thinking of having an identical one made to wear regularly. The diamond can be replaced with something else, but the design has to be exactly the same. At least it needs to look the same to the naked eye. I want to keep this one safe. The sales associate glanced at the ring again. Ma'am, are you sure? I said firmly, yes, exactly the same. Ideally, I'd like to have it within the next 2 days. The sales associate nodded. All right, if it's urgent, the fastest would be about 3 days. The ring was carefully measured and photographed. I barely hesitated before pulling my bank card out of my bag. After everything was taken care of, I walked out of the jewelry store. After getting back near my neighborhood, I didn't go home right away. Instead, I went to browse the large fresh food supermarket. I pushed a shopping cart around, looking for what I wanted. In the end, when my eyes landed on the bullfrog, the corner of my lips curved slightly. Zhang Hao hated frogs more than anything. I was going to pick the most unusual one. After searching for a long time, I chose the biggest one, with darker skin, bulging eyes, and especially frantic movements. I pointed at the bullfrog. Could you please weigh this one for me? No need to kill it. The clerk quickly scooped it up, weighed it, and packed it up. I took it expressionlessly, paid, and headed home at a brisk pace. When I got to the entrance of my apartment building, I didn't go up right away. At that hour, most people were already out the door, either heading to school or off to work. It was very quiet downstairs. I turned my attention to a corner beside the neighboring building's entrance, where some construction debris and odds and ends that weren't needed for the time being were piled up. Hardly anyone ever went there. I quickly walked over, crouched down as if to tie my shoelaces, and then swiftly shoved the plastic bag into the deepest part of the gap. Only after I'd done all that did I stand up and, acting as if nothing had happened, walk into my own building. For the next 2 days, I was on edge. Every day, I'd find an excuse to go downstairs and check whether the bullfrog was still alive, and secretly give it a little water and some vegetable leaves. At last, the afternoon of the 3rd day arrived, and I made up another excuse to go out. When the shop assistant slid the ring over to me, I could barely hide my smile. After paying the remaining balance, I put the fake ring on my finger. As soon as I got home, my mother-in-law came right over. Xiao, you're back. Been out shopping this long? I changed into my slippers. I just took a walk around the neighborhood. There are a few breakfast places on the street ahead, and we can try them sometime when we're free. My mother-in-law's eyes went straight to the ring on my ring finger. Seeing it was still there, she smiled. In the evening, Zhang Hao came home from work, and as usual, his eyes swept over my fingers. Dinner was just as lavish as ever. My mother-in-law kept putting food on my plate. Eat more, eat more. Your health is your greatest asset. The healthier you are, the longer you'll live. I kept my head down and ate in silence. After dinner, I went back to the bedroom and sat at the vanity, taking a deep breath. Hearing Zhang Hao come out after his shower, I deliberately slowed my movements. While applying lotion, I carefully slipped the ring off and just set it on the tabletop. Zhang Hao immediately came over. Luo Xiao, why did you take it off? He grabbed my hand at once and put the ring back on, his eyes fixed tightly on me. My eyes turned red in an instant. Honey, I was just afraid the lotion would dirty it. Zhang Hao looked at me, and the anger on his face eased a little. Then don't take it off either. If it gets dirty, let it be dirty. I'll buy you another one later. I nodded. I know, honey. Zhang Hao stood behind me, staring intently at everything I was doing. When he noticed all the bottles and jars on my desk, his expression darkened again. What are these? Why do you need so many things? Who are you dressing up for? None of this was necessary to buy, and you won't even use half of it. Take it to Mom later. It can count as a little show of filial piety on your part. My nails almost dug into my palms. I lowered my head and obediently said, "Okay, honey, I'll do what you say." As soon as I finished speaking, I reached out and gathered everything into my arms. Standing outside my mother-in-law's room, Zhang Hao knocked on the door for me. My mother-in-law called out that it wasn't locked. Zhang Hao opened the door for me. 5. I walked up obediently and said, "Mom, these are the skincare and makeup products I use." Hao said I won't need them anymore, and it'd be a waste to just let them sit here. They're pretty good, too, if you don't mind. You can have them. My mother-in-law's eyes lit up instantly. Oh my. My wonderful daughter-in-law, how could I mind? These are all great things, I'll take them. My daughter-in-law really does know how to be considerate. I hid the chill in my eyes. I'm glad you like them. I'll head back now. My mother-in-law happily put the things away. All right, go back and get some sleep. On my way back, Zhang Hao was still playing on his phone, not even lifting his head. After how long I don't know, he finally fell asleep. Only then did I carefully and little by little lift the blanket and slip out. I groped my way to the front door in the dark and unlocked it as quietly as I could. The hallway outside was deserted in the middle of the night. Using the faint light, I hurried outside the building entrance and made my way to the corner. I crouched down and deftly pulled away the discarded panels. The black plastic bag was still there. Looking at it, I was surprised to see it was still in such good shape, and my gaze fell on the ring I had securely tied to my leg with a rope. Live well. Once I'd made sure everything was settled, I slipped back home again. Over the next few days, I practically took over all the housework. My mother-in-law's praise never let up. Zhang Hao started treating me very differently too. Every day without fail, I'd make up an excuse to go for a walk outside and secretly feed the bullfrog a little something. As the days went by, my mother-in-law was growing more and more irritable. Every day when I went out, she would ask questions. That almost watchful, almost surveillant feeling sent a chill down my spine. Zhang Hao had also become somewhat distracted. Whenever he got home from work, he no longer just buried himself in his phone, he would also glance over at me from time to time. At last, on the eve of that big day from my past life's memories, the tension and anticipation reached a peak. That morning, I was getting ready to head out as usual, but just as I reached the door, my mother-in-law rushed over. Xiao, are you going out? Startled, I nodded. Yes, Mom, I'm going to buy groceries, and I'll make you some braised fish when I get back. My mother-in-law hurriedly forced a smile and reached out to grab my arm. Today the weather's bad. It looks like it's going to rain, so don't go out. There's still food at home. Just have a simple meal. I glanced out the window. It was bright and sunny. So, it's tomorrow then. I lowered my eyes and nodded obediently. Okay, Mom, I'll do what you say. My mother-in-law let out a sigh of relief. That's more like it, my good daughter-in-law. She spent the whole day hovering around me, hardly letting me out of her sight. When Zhang Hao came home that evening, Grandma immediately pulled him aside and spoke to him in a low voice. I vaguely caught something like, "Tomorrow, don't you dare go out. Keep an eye on her." 6. At dinner, the atmosphere was so eerie it was downright scary. Grandma kept piling food onto my plate. Zhang Hao ate very quickly, barely looking up. After dinner, I was just about to clear the table when my mother-in-law beat me to it and stopped me. "Oh, let Mom handle the cleanup today. You should head back and rest early so you can get plenty of energy back." I nodded obediently and went back to my room under her watchful gaze. After closing the door, I leaned against it, my heart nearly pounding out of my chest. Tomorrow, I bit my lip hard enough to taste a hint of blood. I walked over to the dressing table, looked at the pale but eerily calm face in the mirror, took a deep breath, and began quietly practicing the way I remembered my father-in-law speaking. His tone, his expression, even the way he snapped at people. By the time dawn broke the next day, as soon as I got up and dressed, Zhang Hao woke up too. He practically threw himself in front of me, using both hands and feet to block my way. "Where are you going? It's cold outside this early in the morning. Don't go out." I sneered inwardly, but frowned on the surface. Can't I even just stay inside the residential complex? Zhang Hao's voice suddenly rose. "Mom already said it. Since you're staying home, just rest for 2 days." I pretended to pout unwillingly, seeing that I was no longer insisting. Zhang Hao also let out a small sigh of relief. At that moment, the bedroom door was suddenly pushed open. My mother-in-law was standing outside, wearing a dress she only put on for the new year, with her hair neatly styled. I pretended to be dizzy and swayed twice. The old woman hurried over at once and grabbed my hand. Old man, she threw her whole weight into me, holding me in a crushing hug that almost left me breathless. I took a sharp breath and instantly switched gears. I shoved the old woman hard away. Get lost, you old hag. Taken by surprise, the old woman staggered from my shove, her eyes full of shock. I lowered my head and pretended to stare at the two of them in shock, my eyes carrying that rough, domineering look of a man. Damn it, what the hell is this supposed to be? I barked. In a rough voice, imitating my father-in-law's cursing and roaring in his thick accent, my finger nearly jabbing my mother-in-law in the face. You crazy old hag, have you lost your mind? How the hell did I turn into a girl? Huh? I flailed my arms, shaking with rage. Look at this, look at it. What the hell is this supposed to be? This is a woman's body. How am I supposed to show my face in public now? You've completely humiliated me. If people find out I turned into a woman, I might as well be dead. My mother-in-law was completely stunned, the ecstasy on her face long gone, flustered, and at a loss. She tried to explain. No, listen, old man, I just had no choice. I cut her off with a roar and pointed at Zhang Hao. Bullshit, there's no way. And you, what the hell are you doing, you spineless bastard? You're just going to stand there and watch your mother pull this crap. I ended up like this, and now you're satisfied, huh? 7. Zhang Hao jerked at my shout, his face turning deathly pale. Instinctively, he shrank back and hunched his neck. He hurried over, but not to protect his mother. Instead, he came over trembling to try to calm me down. Dad, please don't be angry yet. Mom, she just missed you too much. Even if this body, still, at least you're back, you'll get used to it eventually. I kept roaring in fury. Get used to what? My ass. Seeing the fear in their eyes, I lashed out and kicked Zhang Hao hard. What the hell kind of mess is this? I was panting hard, looking like I was about to pass out from sheer rage. I glared at them fiercely, then gave a violent wave of my hand. I'm going out for some air. This damn body is suffocating me. Don't any of you follow me. With that, I ignored the panicked mother and son, spun around, and stormed out, slamming the door behind me. It wasn't until I had left the apartment building that I finally allowed myself to relax a little. I reached up and touched my forehead. My back was already drenched in cold sweat, and my arms were even trembling a little from the over-the-top performance I'd just put on. I'd made it through this one. His father had always been like that at home too, lashing out at Grandma and Zhang Hao whenever he felt like it. Maybe that's just how he'd been brought up. Zhang Hao was terrified of his father, and that fear was beyond his control, which happened to work in my favor. They probably wouldn't suspect anything from how I'd just reacted. I forced down the urge to burst out laughing and quickly composed my expression and emotions. It's not time to celebrate yet. The plan is only halfway done. I hurried over to the corner of the neighboring unit. Scanning my surroundings warily, I quickly shoved aside the pile of junk. Sure enough, that ugly bullfrog was still alive, squirming restlessly inside the bag. You old beast, this time, you're going to die. I carefully untied the bag, took the diamond ring fixed to the bullfrog's leg, and slipped it into my pocket. Then I picked up the black plastic bag and walked back inside as if nothing had happened. Standing outside the door, I put on an angry expression and pushed the door open. My mother-in-law and Zhang Hao were sitting on the sofa, their faces filled with fear and unease. When they saw me come back, both of them jumped, staring at me nervously. My mother-in-law spoke up timidly. Old man, please don't be angry. I couldn't even be bothered to look at her. I cut her off harshly and threw the plastic bag in my hand onto the floor. The water had spilled all over the floor from the bag, and mother-in-law shrank her neck back. Too afraid to say another word, I raised my hand, ready to slap her across the face, but then I thought better of it. Alright, you like this stuff. I happened to buy it, so take it and cook it. Mother-in-law froze. She instinctively crouched down to take a look, and when she realized it was an unbutchered bullfrog, a smile unconsciously spread across her face. After Zhang Hao noticed, he instinctively stepped back half a pace, his face betraying undisguised disgust and fear. I shot him a vicious glare. You useless piece of trash, your mom likes it, and you're complaining. I really wasted my time raising you, you brat. The mother-in-law picked up the plastic bag and walked into the kitchen with a smile. I went over to the sofa by myself, sat down heavily, picked up the remote, and turned on the TV. Seeing that, Zhang Hao didn't dare say much. He could only go get a mop to clean up the floor. Leaning back on the sofa, the corners of my mouth curled into a faint smile. No one knew how long had passed before the noise from the kitchen finally stopped. The mother-in-law came out carrying a large steaming plate of braised bullfrogs and sauce. Alright, old man, howsy, come on, eat while it's hot. She set the bullfrog dish right in the center of the dining table, then quickly laid out the bowls and chopsticks. I deigned to get up and take the seat at the head of the table. My mother-in-law watched me nervously. Full of anticipation, I picked up my chopsticks, casually grabbed the biggest frog leg, and stuffed it into my mouth. Not bad, you haven't gotten worse. That one simple sentence nearly moved his mother-in-law to tears of joy. She hurriedly sat down too and eagerly added a few more pieces to my bowl. As long as you like it, eat more. Zhang Hao hesitated and stalled, staring at the dish, his face turning pale, chopsticks in hand but still too afraid to take a bite. Seeing that, his mother-in-law immediately urged him on. Howsy, what are you waiting for? Your dad bought that. It's so fresh. It was still kicking while I was killing it just now. Zhang Hao shot me a pleading look. I immediately furrowed my brows and said impatiently, what are you dragging your feet for? A grown man like you, fussing over a meal like this, what a joke. Hurry up and eat. At my shout, Zhang Hao jolted with a start, almost with his eyes shut and holding his breath. He stuffed the meat into his mouth, chewed it twice at random, and swallowed it. Watching him look so utterly miserable, I felt a surge of intense satisfaction deep inside. For the moment, the only sounds at the table were chewing and the clatter of bowls and chopsticks. 9. After I'd had about enough, I set down my chopsticks, picked up my glass, and took a sip of the cheap liquor. I could tell the time was about right. I slammed the wine glass to the floor. I can't stand using this girl's body. It's stifling. Pathetic. Just looking at it gets on my nerves. I can't take another day of this. Zhang Hao and my mother-in-law stared at me dumbly, neither of them understanding what I meant. I pointed at Zhang Hao. Hurry up and get the divorce. Today, right now. Go handle the paperwork for me. Divorce? You want a divorce? Zhang Hao was completely stunned, and the chopsticks in his hand clattered onto the table. My mother-in-law panicked too and shot to her feet. Old man, this won't do. Even if your body is a girl's now, at least you're younger, and Howsy is already so old. If his co-workers found out, wouldn't they laugh at him? I jabbed her in the head with my finger, and my spit was practically hitting her face. I'm a grown man. What the hell am I doing, wearing a woman's body every day? This marriage has to end it cleanly. I'm still young, with the money in hand, I can go somewhere else and still make a living. Zhang Hao panicked. But, Dad, we've done so much for you, now you're leaving. I glared at him and kicked him without warning. What's wrong with leaving? You're not even listening to me now. You think just because I'm like this, I can't deal with you anymore. That roar snapped Zhang Hao back to his senses. He shrank his neck in fear and immediately said over and over, I'll listen, Dad, I'll do whatever you say. Please don't be mad. My mother-in-law was about to say something else, but I shot her a fierce glare. She immediately fell silent, only able to stomp her feet in anxious frustration as tears welled up in her eyes again. I snorted coldly, hurry up, go to the civil affairs office right now. We're ending this damn mess today. With that, I immediately urged Zhang Hao to pack up his things. My mother-in-law was pacing anxiously nearby, but she didn't dare step forward to stop me. She could only keep asking Zhang Hao over and over, Howsy, what are we supposed to do now? Zhang Hao shook his head helplessly, and could only carry out my instructions numbly. Zhang Hao and I left the house, one after the other, playing the role of my father-in-law. I deliberately took big strides and walked in front. Zhang Hao trailed behind me, looking utterly dejected. We didn't exchange a word the whole way. 10. When we got to the Civil Affairs Bureau, everything went surprisingly smoothly. The clerk looked at the two of us, a couple, one of us wearing an impatient, irritable scowl, the other looking as lost and dejected as if waiting to die. Though they found it odd, they didn't ask any questions. After all, couples coming in to get divorced all had different looks on their faces. Zhang Hao barely dared to lift his head the whole time. Whatever the clerk asked, he would just numbingly nod or answer yes. When that dark red divorce certificate was finally handed to us, I clearly saw his shoulders tremble. I snorted coldly to myself, unable to understand what on earth he was pretending for. Wasn't everything done exactly the way he and his mother wanted? Clutching the little booklet in my hand, I almost couldn't hold back a laugh, but then I remembered Zhang Hao was still right there, so I forced myself to hold it in for the moment and casually stuffed the divorce certificate into my pocket. All right, enough dawdling. It's finally done. I snapped at him irritably and turned to walk out. After leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, I stopped and looked at the pale-faced Zhang Hao beside me. I took a deep breath and brushed my arm off in disgust. The divorce is done. I'll grudgingly acknowledge that the girl's been with me, but this isn't over. I still have to live my life. I stared at Zhang Hao. Howsy, didn't you say before that you wanted to rent a storefront and start a small business? I'd already taken a look before I died, and there's a pretty good opportunity. We just happen to be short on cash. I held up 2 fingers and gave them a slow wag. Not much, give me 800,000 first. Zhang Hao jerked his head up. Disbelief written all over his face. 800,000, Dad, why you're kidding. Right, how could we possibly have that much money at home? He was so anxious that the veins on his forehead bulged. We've already spent a lot here and there to get you back. There's no way we can come up with 800,000, even if we sell the house. I shot him a glare. Bullshit, like I don't know you. You sneaky bastard must have been hiding money somewhere. I'm stuck in this lousy body now and can't do heavy labor. If I don't figure out a way to make money, I'll be left with nothing. You think I can count on you to support me in old age? I'm telling you, not a chance. The angrier I got, the closer my finger came to stabbing his nose. You have to hand over that money. Just take it as paying off everything I've done for you all these years. From now on, whether I live or die, it's none of your business. Zhang Hao went deathly pale from the scolding, stumbling back step by step, his eyes filled with despair. 11 I knew it all too well. 800,000 was almost enough to drain him dry, but so what? Zhang Hao owed me just when he was on the verge of breaking down. A figure suddenly darted out from the side. My mother-in-law had clearly overheard our conversation. Though her face was full of pain at the thought of the money, she still grabbed Zhang Hao's arm. Haozi, listen to your dad. You have to give him the money. Panting hard, she stared me down. The old man is right. He just got back. Using that body is already hard on him, and besides, it's not even convenient. How can he manage without money? He's young now, which makes him good for business. Only by doing business can he turn things around and live a proper life. Give him the money. Zhang Hao's eyes bulged so wide they looked ready to pop out. Mom, that's 800,000. His mother-in-law cut him off, almost shouting, her bony hand gripping his arm so tightly it hurt. Figure it out. Go borrow it. Take out a loan. Your dad made that money, and it's still yours in the end. Besides, as long as your dad gets better, what's money? You can always make more. Haozi, just listen to Mom. I bit back a smile. What a great mother-in-law, really coming through. I gave a faint snort. At least you know what matters. Just look at the fine son you raised. All those years spent raising him for nothing, seeing his mother act like a madwoman, then looking at my cold expression. Zhang Hao's lips trembled, and he couldn't say a word. What are you standing there for? His mother-in-law pushed him. Hurry, go to the bank first. Take out the 200,000 from our fixed deposit and give it to your dad. Zhang Hao was half dragged, half shoved by his mother-in-law into the nearest bank. I trailed behind with a sour look on my face. At the counter, Zhang Hao's hands kept shaking, and he entered the wrong password several times. In the end, 20 thick stacks of cash were pushed out. My mother-in-law snatched it away at once, stuffed it into the cloth bag she'd already prepared, then turned and handed it to me with a fawning smile on her face. Old man, take these 200,000 yuan for now. As for the rest, let Haozi think of another way. I took the heavy bag, but not the slightest ripple stirred in my heart. Did they really think 200,000 yuan would be enough to brush me off? Impossible. My expression darkened instantly. Without even looking at it, I hurled it hard onto the bank floor. With a dull thud, the mouth of the cloth bag came undone, revealing several stacks of pink banknotes. 200,000, are you trying to brush off a beggar? I pointed at the money on the ground and roared, 800,000, not a single cent less. I knew it. You'd hidden the money long ago just to fool me into backing off. What's this little bit even good for? It wouldn't even rent a storefront. Do you want to see me starve to death? After saying that, I suddenly turned around and looked at the crowd gathered to watch the spectacle. Everyone, judge this fairly. I raised my son with all my blood and sweat, and now that I'm down on my luck and need a little money, he's trying to fob me off with this measly amount. There's no justice in the world. 12 Zhang Hao's face turned beet red in an instant, and he wished there were a hole in the ground he could crawl into. My mother-in-law panicked too. She hurriedly tried to pick up the money from the ground, while also trying to stop me. Old man, don't shout, don't shout. Let's talk at home, talk at home. She was so anxious that she reached out to grab my arm. I shoved her away hard and kept pointing at Zhang Hao's nose, cursing him without let-up. If you don't scrape together 800,000 for me today, I'm not leaving. I'll make sure none of you can live in peace. Let everyone see what kind of ungrateful son you really are. Because I looked young and was a woman, the people around us gathered closer when they heard me say that. Some of them even kept dragging Zhang Hao, asking him how this woman of mine could be his father. Zhang Hao was completely broken. His voice was full of despair. Fine, I'll give it to you. I'll give you everything. I'll go withdraw it all and hand it over to you. Stop making a scene. Stop it already. Once I got what I wanted, I immediately stopped crying and fussing, just glaring at him fiercely. Why couldn't you have said that sooner, you spineless coward? Hurry up and go. Zhang Hao walked toward the counter, his face ashen. My mother-in-law was standing nearby too, her lips parting slightly, but in the end, she said nothing. It was a long while before Zhang Hao finally handed all the cash he had taken out to me. I took it expressionlessly and weighed it in my hand. At least you still have a shred of conscience. When I got home, I threw the 2 money bags straight into the deepest part of the wardrobe. Over the next few days, I continued playing the part of the irritable father-in-law. My mother-in-law was being extra careful, bending over backward to win me over. Zhang Hao completely fell silent, hiding in his room the whole time and not daring to come out and face me. Seeing that the time was about right, that night I sat up quietly, took the cash out of the wardrobe, and at the very bottom was the backpack I had brought with me before marriage. I took everything out of it, then stacked the 800,000 yuan inside, bundle by bundle. Then I changed into the plainest clothes, slung the backpack over my shoulder, and left that home. The night air was cold, but I felt clearer than ever. I didn't pause for a second and hurried toward the entrance of the residential complex. There were very few taxis at this hour, but I was lucky enough to flag down an empty one. After I gave him the destination, the driver hesitated for a moment, but when I said I'd pay him double, he hit the gas without a second thought. 13 Much later, my phone suddenly started vibrating. Watching the name flash on the screen, I let a cold smile curl at the corner of my lips. I waited a moment, and just as the phone was about to hang up automatically, I calmly pressed the answer button. From the other end of the line came Zhang Hao's furious, near voice-breaking roar, with my mother-in-law's wailing mixed in the background. Luo Xiao, no, Dad, where did you go? The money, did you take the money? Say something, where are you? Listening to Zhang Hao's howls, I could even picture their despair right now. I didn't speak right away, until the shouting on the other end was laced with deeper panic from getting no response. Hello, Dad, can you hear me? Say something. I finally spoke, my voice calm. Stop yelling, I'm not your dad. Your good-for-nothing father is already in your stomach. He's been dead for a long time. The line went dead silent in an instant. Even the mother-in-law's wailing seemed to be cut off at the throat. The silence dragged on for a full 5 seconds until Zhang Hao's voice rang out again. You, what did you say? You're Luo Xiao. You're not dead. I let out a soft laugh. Sorry to disappoint you by not being killed by you all. I actually figured it out long ago. Zhang Hao's voice completely broke, thick with sobs. No, impossible. That was clearly Dad before. I stopped hiding it and burst out laughing. Even the driver in front was startled, hot-tempered, swearing, if I hadn't done it this way, how could I have fooled you two ungrateful bastards? Putting on that act was exhausting. As for the money, I took it. You owed me that. Zhang Hao finally caught on. Luo Xiao, you vicious woman, give the money back. That's our family's savings. I cut him off. When you teamed up to try to take my life, why didn't you think about the consequences? And go ahead and call the police if you want. The money was withdrawn by you after our divorce, and you handed it to me in front of everyone. There's security footage. I'll be waiting. There was dead silence on the other end of the line. I hung up the phone and rode for another 2 hours, relying on my memory. I made my way back to the home I used to live in. I hesitated for a very long time, my hand lifting and falling again and again. In the end, I took a deep breath, summoned all my courage, and pressed the doorbell. My mother's tired voice came from inside. Who is it? When she saw that it was me standing outside, she froze completely. Her eyes flew wide open as she looked me up and down. Xiao, 14. My legs gave out and I dropped to my knees, choking out, Mom, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Mom snapped back to her senses and hurriedly opened the door to help me up, her eyes red-rimmed. Why, you child, come in. She hurried me inside, shut the door, and flusteredly poured me a glass of water. Lao Luo, come out quick, look who's back. Dad came out when he heard her, and froze when he saw me. I lowered my head, too afraid to look him in the eye, and the tears fell even harder. Dad, I know now that I was wrong. Mom sat down beside me, took my hand, and asked, what happened? Did Zhang Hao bully you? Was his family treating you badly? Again, Dad didn't say a word, but his eyes stayed fixed on me. I was shaking all over as I cried, speaking in broken, halting sentences. I didn't mention the bizarre swap. I only told them what I could, how they'd acted like two completely different people before and after the wedding, how badly they'd treated me, how my mother-in-law had bullied me all the time, and how Zhang Hao had teamed up with his mother to scheme against me and control me. As my parents listened, their faces grew darker and darker. My mom kept wiping away her tears, cursing through clenched teeth. Bastards, the whole lot of them. I knew it. I knew that family was nothing but trouble. My dad's face went livid. You miserable wretch. I told you back then to just do as you were told, It was only when I said I'd already found a way to secretly get divorced, and had even taken compensation, that my parents were completely stunned, their eyes wide open, staring at the backpack stuffed with cash. They couldn't say a word. For a long time Mom's voice was trembling. This is, in a hoarse voice, I said, these 800,000 yuan are all the savings their family had. I brought it back. This isn't compensation, it's the money I paid for my life. Dad shot to his feet. How could you do this? If they find out. I wiped away my tears. They've already found out. He called me while I was on the bus. Mom, Dad, I really know I was wrong. I can't stand the thought of leaving that money to that bastard. Mom pulled me into a tight hug and burst into tears too. You silly child, it's enough that you came back. Money doesn't matter. As long as you're home, that's what counts. We were in the wrong. We shouldn't have said such harsh things to you, and we shouldn't have left you on your own. Dad let out a heavy sigh. All right, stop crying. Now that you're home, everything's fine. Even if the sky falls, I'll hold it up for you. 15. Just then, the front door swung open, and my two brothers came back too. My eldest brother was the first to recover, staring at me in shock. Mom, Dad, this is Shio. Why are you back? What's going on? Mom wiped away her tears and, choking on her words, told them everything that had happened to me. My second brother had the worst temper of all. He kicked the chair beside him hard. That bastard. I said from the start he was no good. How could he treat my little sister like this? I'm going to kill him. My eldest brother was comparatively calm. He stepped forward and looked at me. Shio, you've suffered. From now on, stay here at home and don't be afraid. I took a deep breath, fought back my tears, walked over to my backpack, pulled out 400,000 yuan, and split it into two piles. Brother, take this money. Back when I got married, you both helped scrape together my dowry, and I refused it. I also said a lot of horrible things. Think of this as my way of making it up to you. Both of my brothers froze, glancing at the 200,000 yuan in their hands. They quickly tried to hand it back. No, how can we take this? Keep your money for yourself. We don't need it, I said firmly. You have to take it. This money isn't clean. It came from that beast, but I want to make it a little cleaner by giving it to you and Mom and Dad. That way I can feel at ease. Otherwise, just looking at this money makes me sick. Then I looked at my parents. Mom, Dad, keep the rest, or help me save it. Either way is fine. In the end, with red-rimmed eyes, they still took it. Several days later, just as our family was sitting down to eat, Zhang Hao came looking for us again with his mother in tow. Luo Xiao, get out here. I know you're in there. Give me back my money, you wicked woman, you jinx. Open the door, or we'll call the police. My parents' faces changed, and Mom quickly stepped in front of me to shield me. My two brothers shot to their feet. I patted Mom's taut arm. Let me handle this. The two brothers exchanged a look and nodded. Dad's face darkened as he strode to the door and yanked it open. Zhang Hao's hair was a mess, and his eyes were red. My mother-in-law was a complete mess too, her hair in disarray and tears streaming down her face. When the door opened, especially when he saw me, Zhang Hao roared and tried to charge in. Luo Xiao, you bitch, you venomous hag, give me back my money. That's my family's money. The mother-in-law also burst into tears and howled. This is outrageous. They're robbing us. That cursed jinx, good-for-nothing wretch. She killed my husband and now she wants to drain our family dry. However, they never even got the chance to rush in. Second brother gave Zhang Hao a hard shove without the slightest politeness. Get lost. Who said you could come throwing your weight around at my doorstep? Zhang Hao was shoved so hard he staggered for a moment, then grew even more frenzied. So this is the fine daughter your Luo family raised, stealing a man's money. What a shameless little slut, and you're still protecting her. 16. Dad was furious and pointed a finger right at Zhang Hao's nose, cursing him out. Bullshit, your dog mouth can't spit out ivory. My daughter taking back what's rightfully hers is only natural. Do you people think we don't know how your rotten family bullied her? And you still have the nerve to come here and make a scene? Mom was also shaking all over with anger. Standing behind my brother, she shouted, a whole family of vicious bastards. You schemed against my daughter. May you all die horribly. As soon as the mother-in-law heard that, she slapped her thigh and wailed even louder. Your daughter has no morals and brought death upon her father-in-law, and now she wants to grab the money and run. Heaven, open your eyes. I let out a cold laugh. Brought death upon her father-in-law. What? Do you really want me to lay out every dirty thing you've done in front of everyone? Don't forget, there are security cameras at home. I've got video on my phone too. Do you want me to play it for everyone? My voice wasn't loud, but it instantly froze. The Madness and fury on their faces. Zhang Hao looked at me, his eyes brimming with resentment. My tone was icy, laced with sarcasm. Go on, why aren't you talking now? Didn't you want to call the police? Then call them. Let them see how you tried to use dark sorcery to kill me, so that your dead old man could possess my body and come back to life. My mother-in-law's legs gave out, and she collapsed to the floor. Zhang Hao trembled, his voice so faint it was almost inaudible. Luo Xiao, we're husband and wife, after all. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. Husband and wife, fine, then let the police see how you went out of your way to kill your wife. Zhang Hao looked at me, and the last trace of swagger in his eyes vanished. No, don't, just give us half the money, okay? Second brother kicked out at him without hesitation. You still want money? Did you ever think like that when you were hurting people? Eldest brother shouted in disgust. If you dare come bother my sister again, I'll break your legs. Frightened, Zhang Hao jumped and could only half drag his mother-in-law away. The house fell silent in an instant. Mom pulled me into a tight hug and burst into tears, shaken by the fear of what had just happened. Xiao, are you sure you told us everything? What sorcery? What do you mean, brought back to life? I gently patted Mom on the back and soothed her. It's okay, Mom, it's all over now. They won't dare come back. There were some details I didn't want my family to know too clearly. After all, even I found it terrifying. Dad and my two brothers still looked furious, but the way they looked at me was full of heartache. My eldest brother looked at me and said seriously, Xiao, if they ever dare come back, call me and your second brother right away. With us here, no one's ever going to bully you again. 17. I looked at my family, my eyes stinging with tears. I knew that from this moment on, I was truly safe. Of the 800,000 yuan, my parents insisted on keeping only a small portion for household expenses and forced the rest on me. Xiao, this is money you earned with your life on the line. Keep it yourself, or start a small business with it. We can't take it. I didn't refuse anymore. I used the money to rent a small shop near home. My brothers ran around for me, handling all the paperwork and helping decorate the shop. My parents cooked all kinds of delicious food for me every day, eager to make up in one go for the love and care I had missed over the past 2 years. My complexion gradually became rosy again. The noodle shop opened smoothly, and business was even better than expected. I kept the counter spotless and used only the best noodles. Since most of my customers were neighbors, I kept the prices low, and before long I had a group of loyal regulars. Later on, I also heard bits and pieces of news about Zhang Hao. I heard that after she went back, my mother-in-law completely lost her mind. One moment she was calling for the old man, the next she was screaming in terror, and she even often ran out into the street babbling nonsense. As for Zhang Hao, after losing all his savings and then having his mother go mad as well, he became completely dazed and listless. It said that on his way to work, he was so distracted he ran a red light and was dragged under a truck. By the time he reached the hospital, it was already too late. The friend who told me the news spoke cautiously, afraid of stirring up my sadness. As I listened, my hands paused for a moment in their kneading. My face showed no expression, and I felt perfectly calm inside. Boss, can you still make shredded eel noodles? A regular customer asked with a smile as he pushed the door open and came in. I turned around with a bright smile. Yes, of course, I know you like it, so I always save you a portion at this time. My new life had only just begun. As for the past, it could no longer stir even the slightest ripple in my world. The end. That's it for the first story. Don't go anywhere, the next one gets even more exciting. At my in-laws' funeral, the husband who had been missing for 4 years suddenly appeared. I was certain he was a fraud, an imposter with something shady up his sleeve. What gives you the right? Just because you've seen a few photos, you think you can pass yourself off as my husband, who died long ago? People these days have really got some unbelievable nerve. I questioned him coldly, my brows tightly furrowed. The man refused to back down, insisting against all reason that he was Guzay, my husband who had been missing for years. Relatives on my in-laws' side also said the man looked exactly like Guzay. With everyone so insistent, I gave a faint smile. Real or fake? Why not just do a paternity test and find out? After saying that, I pushed my son toward the man. A smug smile spread across the man's face, but once the results came out, his expression turned ugly in an instant. The test showed they weren't related by blood at all. Seeing the shock on his face, I couldn't help laughing out loud. Guzay, I've been waiting for this day for far too long. At my in-laws' funeral, a man suddenly appeared and claimed to be Guzay. Guzay was my in-laws' only son, and my husband, who mysteriously vanished 4 years ago. The man standing before me looked remarkably similar to Guzay. The only difference was that Guzay had monolids, while this man had double eyelids. His nose bridge was higher and more defined than Guzay's, and his earlobes were Thicker too, I was certain he was an imposter. Up to no good. Where does he get the nerve? Just from looking at a few photos, he thinks he can pass himself off as my late husband. I frowned deeply and snapped angrily. Are the security guards blind? They let just anybody in. Get him out of here now. The security guards swarmed him, and the man struggled desperately. Su Tong, I really am Guzay. How can you not recognize me? When I didn't react, he started calling out to the others. Uncle, take a good look at me. I'm Guzay. I come to pay you New Year's greetings every spring festival. Your youngest son was even brought into the company by me. Aunt, you don't recognize me either. I even sent your daughter a red envelope when she went to college. Why are you stopping me from attending my parents' funeral? They're my biological parents. The Gu family doesn't have many relatives, and they're not especially close. The man looked around and recognized only 2 relatives. The 2 of them stared at the man's face for a long time before hesitantly saying to me, Tong Tong, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to get involved in the family's affairs, but this man really does look a lot like Guzay, too. I stared at the man for a long while before finally shaking my head and saying, no, this isn't right. Guzay has single eyelids, but this man has double eyelids. Guzay's nose isn't this straight, his earlobes aren't this big either. He's a total fake. The man hurriedly tried to defend himself. For years ago, I was injured in the face. It left me disfigured, so I had to get plastic surgery. My face really did change, but I really am Guzay. Even my parents quietly told me that he really did look a lot like me. Seeing my parents, Guzay's eyes lit up, and he even described in detail things that happened when we were dating back then. He also said, if you still doubt me, fine. At least let me go in and keep my parents company for their final moments. Okay. He looked haggard, spoke earnestly, had tears still clinging to his face, and had a big blister on the corner of his mouth. He really looked like someone who had lost a loved one. My parents tried to talk me into it. Back then, Guzay went missing without a trace. Do you want to make absolutely sure? Hearing those details, I almost believed he was Guzay, but I still didn't let my guard down and pushed my son in front of him, saying, whether it's true or not, a paternity test will tell us right away. 3. Everyone nodded in agreement. The man agreed without hesitation. He showed no fear, and everyone was convinced this must be Guzay, so he was allowed to stay at the funeral for the time being. Guzay knelt before his in-laws' memorial portraits, tears streaming down his face, sobbing uncontrollably. Dad, Mom, I'm sorry, I failed you. How could something like this happen all of a sudden? If I'd known this would happen, I never would have. Before he could finish, he swallowed the rest of his words, seeing Guzay appear out of nowhere. My parents were overwhelmed with mixed emotions. They sighed. For years ago, your husband vanished without a trace, and that was the day little Bao was born. 4 years later, after your in-laws passed away unexpectedly, your husband, who had been missing for years, came back. Sigh, your life is beyond words. After my in-laws were laid to rest, since Guzay's identity was still unclear, I had him stay in a hotel for the time being. Guzay was displeased about this, but I didn't care at all. Though anger flashed in his eyes, he forced it down. He said, I came in a hurry this time and didn't bring any clothes to change into. Could you buy me a few sets first? After thinking it over, I handed him my bank card and PIN without hesitation. He accepted it calmly. That very night, the card had already been charged with over 100,000 yuan. Smiling to myself, I thought, the more he spent, the worse the consequences would be. For the next day, I took my parents to find Guzay, hoping to get to the bottom of what had happened over the past few years. He said, back then, I drifted at sea and was rescued by a yacht. When I woke up, my mind was a blank slate. I couldn't remember a thing. The doctor told him that the shock had damaged his nerves and caused him to lose his memory. So for all these years, he had been living in a daze. It wasn't until a few days ago that he saw the news that the chairman and his wife of the Gu group had been in an accident. After seeing the photo, he was hit with a splitting headache and ended up fainting. After being rushed to the hospital and resuscitated, he was stunned to find that his memory had come back. I finally remembered who I am, so I hurried over to keep Mom and Dad company for a while. Thinking back to how he had shown up at the funeral yesterday in a hospital gown, those words sounded sincere and believable. His expression was full of grief, clearly heartbroken over his parents' deaths. I stopped my parents from asking any more questions and told Guzay to get some rest first. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll go get a paternity test. Guzay agreed without hesitation, completely unafraid. Clearly, he was very confident about who he was. After we set a time, I took my parents and left the hotel where he was staying. My parents said, this kid isn't going anywhere. He's probably Guzay. My baby has finally found his real father. Oh, My poor little grandson. I lowered my head and cut them off. Mom, Dad, the test hasn't been done yet. It's too soon to jump to conclusions. Besides, there are signs of cosmetic surgery on his face. He might be an imposter pretending to be Guzay to scam money. They were about to argue, but I quickly stopped them. We'll do the paternity test tomorrow afternoon, and the results will be out in 3 days. Once the results are out, the truth will be clear. Don't rush. 5 The next afternoon, Guzay and Xiaobao went together to have blood drawn for testing. He looked at Xiaobao, his eyes full of guilt. Son, I haven't been by your side these past few years. I've let you down. From now on, I'll make it up to you. I'll never let you feel wronged again. I picked Xiaobao up and handed him to the nanny to look after. The paternity test results aren't out yet. Don't jump to conclusions. Guzay stared at me, his brow tightly furrowed, his tone harsh. Su Tong, I'm Guzay. You can't seriously be mistaking me for someone else, can you? Why do I get the feeling you'd rather I vanished forever? Do you have something else planned? Are you afraid I came back to take the Gu family's assets? He swept me with a sharp look, and I replied calmly, we hadn't even been married for a year when you disappeared without a trace. I can't be sure that you're really Guzay. Let's wait until the paternity test results come back. Guzay let out a cold snort, a smile playing at the corners of his lips. Fine, then we'll wait. 3 days from now. Let's see what else you have to say. The Gu family's assets will all have to be returned to me when the time comes. He was brimming with confidence, only to have the result 3 days later slap him hard in the face. 3 days later, the paternity test results were revealed. The results showed that the man and little Bao had no blood relation at all. Seeing the stunned look on Guzay's face, I couldn't help letting out a soft laugh. After all, I'd been waiting for this day for a very long time. Guzay was stunned beyond words, never imagining that while he was gone, I had already been cheating on him very quickly. He came to his senses and lashed out at me in a furious rage. Su Tong, you bitch, how dare you play me, you slut, you filthy slut. He raised his fist and tried to hit me, but I was already prepared. The bodyguards who had followed him immediately stepped forward and pinned him down hard. He struggled desperately, but he was utterly helpless. Like a trapped beast, I let out a cold sneer and pulled out my phone to make a call. Hello? Is this 110? I'm calling to report a crime. Someone is impersonating my husband, who has been missing for years, and has scammed me out of a huge amount of money. 6 The police arrived quickly and took us to the station. I shouted, Officer, he claimed to be my husband and swindled me out of more than 200,000 yuan. Arrest him now. Guzay shot back angrily, what fraud? You gave me that card of your own free will. You cheated on me. And you still have the nerve to say I'm the one stealing money. You're the one stealing. You even had an illegitimate child. And now you're pretending he's a grandson of the Gu family, trying to take our family's fortune. The one who should be arrested is you. His face turned crimson, and he trembled with rage. I calmly called my lawyer, and before long, he arrived. The lawyer presented my ID card, marriage certificate, and little Bao's birth certificate, proving that I was Guzay's lawful wife. The documents showed that little Bao was the child of Guzay and me, even though Guzay had already gone missing when he was born. The lawyer also brought old photos and videos of Guzay. The man in front of him looked noticeably different. You could still make out signs of plastic surgery on that man's face. No one knew what he looked like before the surgery. The paternity test showed that Xiaobao is not his son. This evidence shows the man deliberately carried out a scam and managed to swindle me out of more than 200,000 yuan. 7 I explained through tears, Officer, he really looks a lot like my husband. I'm not afraid of a paternity test, so I believed him and let him use my bank card. My husband disappeared 4 years ago. Although he was officially declared dead, there was no body, and I've always believed he's still alive. That's why I got scammed. The man sat there in silence, staring at me, seething with rage but unable to offer a single word in his defense. He kept repeating, Officer, believe me, I am Guzay. I really am Guzay. I slammed the table in anger and said, if you're Guzay, then why did the paternity test say Xiaobao isn't your son? He shot back angrily too. You're the one who betrayed me. Xiaobao isn't my child at all. Let me make this clear. I am Guzay. I let out a cold laugh. And what proof do you have? What gives you the right to say you're Guzay? The man roared. I'm Guzay. Do you even need to say that? I turned to the police and said, he's a fraud. He cheated me out of my money. Arrest him now. Based on the evidence available, he was accused of fraud and taken in for questioning. As the lawyer walked me out of the police station, I lowered my head and laughed. At last, fate had started to turn in my favor. I was going to make Guzay taste the same pain and despair I had suffered in my previous life. Only then would being reborn mean something. 8 I'd been given a second chance at life. In my past life, Guzay married me to save the family business, But even after we were married, he stayed gloomy and unhappy. He said the company had too many problems and that the pressure was overwhelming. The GU Group's cash flow broke down, and trouble kept piling up one after another. My father and I had analyzed it carefully. The GU family had a solid foundation. Once the cash flow was restored, things could turn around. That was why my father agreed to let me marry into the GU family. No matter how I tried to comfort Guze, he always wore a troubled look. Even when we were intimate as husband and wife, there was no smile on his face, only a trace of humiliation. He didn't seem like a husband, he seemed more like a respectable man I had forced into it. To help ease his stress, I arranged a trip abroad. Not long after I returned home, I found out I was pregnant. Gu's parents were overjoyed, and Guze was so happy he burst into tears. He was filled with anticipation for the baby's arrival. When I was 8 months pregnant, I suddenly craved fish. Guze volunteered to say, "Honey, wait here, I'm going out to sea to catch the freshest fish myself." Little did I know, once he left, he never came back. The boat owner said he happened to have something to do that day and wanted to reschedule with Guze, but Guze insisted, "My wife is pregnant, I have to catch the freshest fish for her." In the end, Guze set out to sea alone, but never returned. Using the tracker, the boat owner found the boat drifting at sea, completely empty. The snapped fishing line and half-eaten lunchbox pointed to an unfortunate ending. Everyone assumed Guze had already perished beneath the sea, but I refused to believe it. I couldn't bear the thought of my child being born without a father. Heartbroken beyond words, I went into labor early and gave birth to my son. He was like a little kitten, weakly curled up in my arms, crying so softly and looking utterly pitiful. Guze's parents and I cared for him devotedly, hoping for a miracle and praying that Guze, whose body had never been found, would return safely. As the days went by, everyone gradually came to accept Guze's death. The child's presence eased some of the pain. In the 4th year after Guze's death, his parents suddenly passed away. At the funeral, someone appeared who shocked me. Guze, who had died 3 years ago, was standing right in front of me. 9 Just like this lifetime. He said that back then, he accidentally fell into the sea and drifted for more than 10 hours before being rescued. After he was saved, he fell unconscious, and when he woke up, he had no memory of the past, the doctor said. It was probably due to the shock he suffered, which damaged his brain and caused the memory loss. He explained it to me in a low, subdued voice. It wasn't until I saw the news that the chairman of the GU Group and his wife had died unexpectedly. Seeing the photos online, Guze was suddenly overwhelmed and passed out again. He was taken to the hospital, and upon waking, miraculously regained his memory. By the time he rushed to the funeral, he was still wearing the hospital gown. In my previous life, I believed his explanation and accompanied him to kneel before GU family's parents. Back then, I thought fate was still being kind to me. My husband is back at last. My son had a father, but I never expected his return to be the beginning of my nightmare. 10 This time, everything was different. In my previous life, I chose to accept Guze, yet he claimed he had remembered his parents, but forgotten me. He refused to live with me and went straight to asking for a divorce. After agonizing over it for a long time, I finally gave in, but when it came to dividing the assets, we could never reach an agreement. Guze said that both my son and I were strangers to him. He was unwilling to share the fruits of what his parents had worked their whole lives to build. He wanted me to leave with our son, taking not a single cent. I strongly object. Not long after, Guze apologized to me and said he had been out of his mind when he first brought up divorce. He said, "Even though I don't remember you, you're still my family. For my son's sake, I'm willing to keep trying to adjust." He invited us to a picnic in the forest outside the city. He said he wanted to learn how to be a good father. Seeing my son snuggled obediently in his arms, I chose to believe him. At the time, I had no idea the nightmare that was about to unfold. I watched him pick up my son, grab his leg, and slam him hard against the tree trunk. My son's head was instantly covered in blood, yet he kept a tight grip and wouldn't let go. I screamed and rushed over, only to see my son's head mangled and bloodied. I froze in terror, clutching my son, at a loss for what to do. At that moment, I heard a woman scream behind me. She called the police and even gave false testimony for Guze. She became the key witness in the murder charge against me for killing my own son. Only later did I learn her name was Chao Yin, and she was Guze's lover. Guze chose to run from it all and had a child with her. These two teamed up and sent me to prison. Guze played the victim and kept accusing me. He said he didn't remember me and couldn't continue the marriage. Meanwhile, under extreme emotional shock, I dropped and killed our biological son in public. He refused to reconcile. My parents pulled strings, but still couldn't change the verdict. I was sentenced to 4 years in prison. In my 3rd year behind bars, Guze came to visit me of his own accord. He said my father was critically ill and that he didn't want to be too heartless. He signed a letter of forgiveness for me, and I was given a chance for a reduced sentence a month later. I was released early at last. I got to see my father for the final time the next day. My father passed away. I cried myself to pieces, swearing that Guzay would pay for this, but first, I had to handle my father's funeral arrangements. Guzay posted a memorial for my father online at the same time. He named me as the killer in the child murder case from 3 years ago. I was instantly swept up in a storm of online outrage. People online mocked my father, saying that raising a daughter like me was a waste. My father's funeral was disrupted, and the company was thrown into a scandal. Our performance plummeted, and the company came to a standstill. My mother was in tears every day, and I was swamped with work. I had no time to think about revenge. After my father was laid to rest, my son's death anniversary also arrived. After great hardship, I finally found my son's grave, but when I got there, it was overgrown with weeds and eerily deserted. I laid out the offerings and, tears streaming down my face, spoke of how much I missed him. I swore I would make sure my son got the justice he deserved. Then a shadow fell over me. I turned around and saw Guzay standing behind me. The relentless blows had left me weighing barely 70 kg. He overpowered me with ease. He dragged me and hurled me into the icy lake. I had been afraid of water since childhood. After a few desperate struggles, I lost consciousness. 2 days later, my body was found. The police ruled it a suicide. Online commenters said suicide was my only regret. When my mother got the news and went to identify the body, she suffered cardiac arrest and died on the spot. Guzay dragged the whole family into an abyss. Our divorce was never finalized, so I remained his legal wife and I was once again the sole heir of the family. He inherited all the assets, and his wealth kept growing. Not long after, he held a lavish wedding and married Xiao Yin. As for me, I was given a chance to start over. Fate had granted me rebirth, sending me back to the day Guzay and I got married. 11 After being reborn, I heard the MC announce, "Next, please welcome our groom to give his speech." Everyone, amid a round of applause, Guzay picked up the microphone. Then he called out my name, Su Tong. I've imagined countless times what my wedding would be like. That voice was so familiar. Suddenly, I remembered that at the last wedding, he had said the very same thing. Looking around, I saw smiles all over my parents' faces, and a wave of gratitude rose in my heart. Guzay went on, "Honestly, the wedding I imagined was very different from reality, but that's all right. Ideal and reality are never the same. In my previous life, I thought he was complaining about the decorations or the ceremony. Now I understood that the difference he meant was because the bride wasn't the one in his heart. The bride he had been hoping for was Xiao Yin. Fate can be cruel sometimes, and the Gu family company ran into a crisis. The Gu family pinned their hopes on ours and forced Guzay to go on blind dates. After learning that I didn't dislike Guzay, he pushed him to pursue me and make his feelings known. Guzay really was good at this. He managed to win me over completely. My family's money also followed me into the Gu family, easing their immediate crisis. Hearing him get more and more outrageous, my father's expression darkened, and he gave him a cold glance that was a warning. Guzay immediately reined himself in and changed his words. "What I mean is, no matter where you are, my love for you will never change. You're the only one in my heart. I'll spend my whole life proving it, and I'm willing to give you everything. Please, trust me just once." In my past life, I was so caught up in being moved that I didn't notice that when he said those words, he was looking at someone in the audience. I followed his gaze and saw Xiao Yin, face streaked with tears, overcome with emotion and grievance. When it was my turn to speak, I smiled and said, "Guzay, if I could do it all over again, I'd still marry you." I caught the flicker of disgust in his eyes. He didn't know that I chose him not out of love, but to make him pay the price. I wanted him to taste that same suffering and despair. From then on, I thought back to my past life every day, careful not to disturb the plot other than secretly going abroad to clear my head and getting artificial insemination, which successfully led to pregnancy. Nothing else changed. Her son had died a tragic death in her previous life, and she didn't want Guzay to be his father. When she was 8 months pregnant, Guzay went out to sea and disappeared, starting his fake death. I was so enraged that Xiaobao was born prematurely. I took great care of him, and the Gu family's parents doted on Xiaobao as well. They thought Xiaobao was Guzay's biological son, their grandson. The Gu parents felt sorry for Guzay and tacitly allowed him to avoid the issue. Even preparing a new identity for him, they not only arranged a new household registration, but also made slight adjustments to his appearance. They planned that once the Gu group got through the crisis, Guzay would return with Xiao Yin as his illegitimate son. The brothers looked alike, though a closer look still revealed differences. This would solve the money problem and leave Guzay with no regrets, but Xiao Yin refused. She said if we waited another 2 years, I would definitely remarry. That way, Guzay's return would be foolproof. Unfortunately, before they could wait 4 Me to remarry. Guzé's parents died in an accident. After hearing the news, Guzé showed up at the funeral, just like he had in my previous life. After all, he had to come back and reclaim what was rightfully his. Fate had finally come to this. Everything was starting to change for the rest of my life. I refused to acknowledge Guzé's identity. He was forced to take a paternity test to prove his innocence, but little Bao wasn't his child at all. I had planned it all along, and in the end, I sent him to the police station. 12. Guzé was isolated and alone, trapped in a desperate situation. It dawned on him that he might be prosecuted, and he immediately panicked. He laid out all his schemes in full, admitting that he had been hiding with the secret help of his parents. He also admitted that he had feelings for Qiao Yan and explained that he had been living with her all these years. He said Qiao Yan could confirm his identity. Qiao Yan confirmed every word Guzé said and even handed over a stack of photos, mementos taken when Guzé's parents came to visit them. Because I never stopped pursuing the investigation into Guzé, his parents even dared not contact him on WeChat, fearing the police might trace the evidence. Every year, they would secretly meet him under the guise of traveling, and anything important could only be said over the phone. Those warm photos, unfortunately, still could not serve as valid evidence. When the police told me about all this, I flatly denied it and said it was all made up. Impossible, I snapped. My in-laws are both decent people. How could they possibly allow something this ridiculous? They treated me well when they were alive, and my husband used to be good to me too. How could he be so scheming? Con artists really can spin a story. To prove that he was Guzé, he proposed a DNA test using relatives from both sides for comparison, but proving one's identity was no easy task. The court only recognizes paternity tests between the parties involved. As a result, Guzé's request was denied. Gu's father and mother had already been cremated, so their ashes couldn't be used for identification. The only people eligible to confirm the identity were me and my son, Xiaobao. But Xiaobao isn't his child. The matter had reached an impasse. All the avenues that could have verified his identity had already been sealed off by what they did years ago. Guzé completely broke down. Even though Qiao Yan paid off more than 200,000 yuan for him, I still insisted on holding him accountable. Guzé and Qiao Yan were truly inseparable. After Guzé was taken into custody, Qiao Yan never gave up. She ran all over town, pleading for leniency on his behalf. She even came to see me in person, tears streaming down her face. I was secretly delighted. Su Tong, please, just let him off this once. It was our fault, but you didn't suffer any real loss. No loss in my past life. They schemed against me and nearly took my life. This life they didn't manage to hurt me. Does that count as no loss? I shot back angrily. Guzé, my husband is the real Guzé. How dare that liar of yours even use that name? The court has already ruled that he's a fraud, and you're still putting on an act here. Qiao Yan's face twisted as she said excitedly, I don't believe you can't see that he really is Guzé. I don't believe it. You're just jealous, trying to tear us apart. Su Tong, don't blame Guzé. It's not that he doesn't love you, it's that you're not good enough for him. Those words didn't stir me in the slightest. I said calmly, it's not impossible for me to write a letter of understanding. The key is whether Miss Qiao is sincere enough. I made a money-counting gesture. Qiao Yan asked through clenched teeth, how much do you want? I said nothing. She pressed on, 200,000. I still stayed silent, and she raised the offer again, 300,000, 500,000. I held up 2 fingers, meaning 2 million. Qiao Yan completely lost it. Where are we supposed to get that much money? Su Tong, you're taking advantage of our misfortune. They weren't really unable to come up with the money. Gu's parents had been supporting them all along. I reminded her, 2 million isn't that much. Once your man is out early, he'll definitely make it back. Qiao Yan hesitated. She knew Guzé could never turn back now. It used to be fine to rely on her parents for support, but now that the money was all under her name, Gu's parents were unhappy and their support was limited. Guzé had made no real progress for years, and without financial support, it was hard to get by on what he had left. She couldn't bear to hand over the money. Our negotiations ended in failure. In the end, Guzé was sentenced by the court on fraud charges. The courtroom was full of sharp exchanges. Although he had returned the ill-gotten gains, the huge sum involved still earned him a 2-year prison sentence. Guzé broke down in tears, crying out that he had been wronged. I sat in the gallery and watched him burst into tears, secretly delighted. He got a taste of what it felt like to be falsely accused. This was only the beginning. 2 years later, Guzé was finally released from prison. My family and I were especially cautious whenever we went out. Guzé tried several times to get close to me, but failed each time. He still wanted to prove that he was Guzé but made very little headway. Life with Qiao Yan could no longer be spent so recklessly as before. Gradually, he Could no longer it and began to harass me frequently. He even threatened me in public. Su Tong, you got me thrown in prison and stole my family's property. I won't let you get away with this. If you've got the guts, keep watching your back for the rest of your life. If I get the chance, I'll make you wish you were dead. I stopped in my tracks, turned around, and said coldly, what do you mean I got you sent to prison? Back then, I told Xiao Yan that as long as she compensated me, I wouldn't pursue the matter with you. She'd rather see you spend 2 years in prison than spend a dime to help you. Guzay froze, then retorted, impossible. Xiao Yan would never do that to me. Don't make things up. I couldn't help but laugh. What's impossible about it? You haven't made a single cent. Do you really think Xiao Yan would still pour 2 million into you? How's spending it supposed to help her make money? Guzay's face flushed red, and he couldn't come up with a single word to argue back. I reminded him, 2 years ago, she couldn't bear to spend 2 million, now she can't even be bothered to give out 200,000. Don't believe me? Go ahead and try. Guzay turned and walked away. He went to see Xiao Yan and asked her for 200,000 yuan. While teasing the child, Xiao Yan asked, 200,000. What do you need that much money for? I'm not trying to criticize you, but we can't spend money the way we used to anymore. The kid has to go to school, and eventually get married and start a family. Every penny has to be spent where it counts. Guzay's face darkened, but Xiao Yan didn't stop. What are you and your parents up to? Fine, you want to fake your death, but you won't even give me a dime. Your parents are dead, and you don't even have a place to cry. What bad luck, ending up with such short-lived parents. Guzay cut him off sharply. Cut the crap, hurry up and give me 200,000. I need it urgently. This money is mine. If I leave it with you, do you think it's yours? Xiao Yan's tone turned cold and hard. What could you possibly need it for in such a hurry? You don't have a job. What do you need money for? Guzay, you're not that rich. Carefree air anymore. Get real. You're a hopeless loser now. A broke nobody who's been to prison. Guzay was furious to the point of madness. How was I so blind back then? To go along with your fake death scheme. If you hadn't seduced me, how would I have ended up like this? As he said it, he swung a hard slap straight at Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan refused to back down and rushed at him, grappling with him in a fierce struggle. When their son saw his mother being hit, he pounded furiously at Guzay with his tiny fists. Bad guy, big bad guy, don't hit mommy, don't bully mommy, you're a bad guy who's been to prison. Guzay was livid and kicked the child away with one swift blow. The child fell to the ground and burst into tears. Xiao Yan felt utterly heartbroken. She pointed at Guzay and told him to get lost, then called security to have him thrown out. The house was still under Xiao Yan's name. Guzay had nowhere to go and was forced to wander the streets. I had someone rent a place across from their house. I heard every word loud and clear as I drove past Guzay. He recognized the car and reached out to stop me. 14. I rolled down the window, keeping my distance from Guzay. He wasn't even wearing a coat and was shivering from the cold. He set aside all his pride and sincerely begged for my forgiveness. Tong Tong, you wouldn't fail to recognize me, would you? You know I'm Guzay, don't you? I was wrong, really wrong. Back then, I was so completely obsessed with Xiao Yan that I did something atrocious and unforgivable. Can we start over? His eyes were full of pleading. I said nothing for a moment, then pulled 10,000 yuan in cash from my bag and tossed it to him. It's freezing outside. Go buy some clothes and find a place to rest. In a few days, you two will definitely make up. Now that you're living off Xiao Yan, you need to learn to keep a lower profile. Guzay took the money, and the regret on his face became even more genuine. He spoke again. I know I was wrong, and I've already paid for it. Tong Tong, can you let me come home? My expression shifted slightly, but I quickly hardened my resolve. No, Guzay, you already have a new home. Xiao Yan gave you a child. Have you forgotten? The place you should go back to is Xiao Yan's. Guzay's face twisted in pain, and then, as if something had suddenly occurred to him, he looked up at me and asked, what if there were no Xiao Yan? What if there were no child? Would you forgive me? Would you let me come home? My face grew grave. After a long silence, I said softly, if there's no if, what's the point of asking what if? I rolled up the car window and told the driver to start the car, clutching that bill. Guzay stood there for a long time, rooted to the spot. A few days later, Guzay called the police and reported that Xiao Yan and the child were missing. He said he had tried to break up with her, but Xiao Yan refused and even used their son to threaten him. Worried about the safety of the mother and child, he hurried to the reservoir on the outskirts of the city using the address Xiao Yan had given him. The car had stopped, but there was no sign of them. Several days later, police recovered 2 bodies from the lake, one adult and one child. The child's skull had been crushed. The method was brutally Vicious, the adult had been strangled to death. Guzay insisted that Xiao Yan had killed her son and then taken her own life, but the police received a video from a witness. The man was an avid fisherman, and happened to be there on the day of the incident. In the footage, Guzay beat his own son to death with a rock, and the panicked Xiao Yan was shoved into the lake and drowned. The fisherman nervously captured the scene on camera, and it became damning evidence. Coincidentally, the fisherman was their neighbor. In the end, Guzay was sentenced to death and executed immediately. 15 When I got home from work, Mom was reading a fairy tale to Xiaobao. Dad was in high spirits for a rare occasion and personally cooked his specialty dishes. When Xiaobao heard the noise, he happily called out for Mom and ran straight toward me. At the dinner table, the whole family was warm and cheerful, enjoying a cozy atmosphere. I reported to Dad, "Dad, the Goo Group has been merged into our company, and the integration is now fully underway." Dad waved it off casually. "You're the chairman now, handle it yourself." "That's right, I successfully took over the Goo Group." The end. Story 2 In the morning, I went shopping with my best friend and happened to see Lu Yanxuan, who is always cool and self-restrained, purchasing that high-end customized dress at the Chanel counter that I had reserved for a long time. In the evening, however, that dress appeared on Lu Yanxuan's female secretary. I didn't pursue the matter and just smiled playfully. I had all the high-end customized dresses of the same style from every Chanel store in the city transferred here and piled them in front of him. I let him buy as many as he wanted at once. My best friend even drafted a divorce agreement for me overnight. I have both money and good looks. What I lack the least is men. At the annual meeting, holding a glass of red wine, I chatted and laughed merrily with the general managers of the group's branches. As the music started playing, the dance floor gradually became lively. Lu Yanxuan and his female secretary arrived late. I saw with my own eyes that at the entrance, he adjusted the position of the Chomet brooch for Jiang Ruoshi. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, his eyes were full of doting, and he seemed very satisfied with his work. Lu Yanxuan has always had a unique eye. After his adjustment, the delicacy of Jiang Ruoshi's face was instantly enhanced to a higher level. She could barely match that high-end customized Chanel dress at that moment. All my illusions were shattered in an instant. When I saw Lu Yanxuan coming out of the counter in the morning, I thought he was getting the dress for me, and my heart was filled with happiness. I even asked the makeup artist to create a makeup look that matched the dress for me until just before the annual meeting started. I still didn't see him send the dress home. I deliberately called him and asked if he had anything to give me. He perfunctorily replied a few words, saying he was busy with work, but I still caught a sweet female voice in his words. "Mr. Lu, won't President An be unhappy if she finds out?" "Don't worry, she has so many clothes that she could open a fashion show." I suddenly realized that this man was no longer as pure as before. Jiang Ruoshi raised her face and gave me a sweet smile. Those sweet dimples were very familiar. "Hello, President An, you look really beautiful tonight." In the face of her flattery, my eyes turned a bit colder. With a scrutinizing gaze, I looked her up and down. "This dress of yours is nice. It's the same style as the Chanel set I reserved before." We are all smart people, so there's no need to be too explicit. As a college student who has just graduated from school for less than a year, she can't afford high-end clothing worth nearly 200,000 yuan. Jiang Ruoshi felt extremely uncomfortable under my gaze. She bit her lips, her hands fidgeted nervously, and she kept looking at Lu Yanxuan. Lu Yanxuan met my gaze, and his face was as calm as usual. "Shanhua, don't misunderstand. Ruoshi said she has never attended such a grand annual meeting and has never worn high-end dresses before. Considering that she works hard and is motivated, I just casually got a set for her." I raised my eyebrows and nodded, giving a look to my assistant beside me. The next second, a row of 13 Chanel salespersons, all dressed in well-tailored work clothes, came into the hall in a mighty line, each holding a dress of the same style, and stopped in front of Lu Yanxuan. Lu Yanxuan looked at me in confusion. I crossed my arms, leaned against the nearby carved pillar, and the corners of my mouth curled up into a playful smile. "Pay for them. There are 13 general managers here, all with their secretaries. They are all hardworking and motivated." "Mr. Lu wouldn't show favoritism and only dote on his own secretary, would he?" Jiang Ruoshi knew that I was trying to make things difficult for them and make them lose face. The color drained from her face instantly, and even her voice took on a sobbing tone. "President An, please don't make things difficult for Mr. Lu. It's all my fault. I'll return the dress right away." Look at what she said. It's as if I'm being unreasonable and breaking up a loving couple. Jiang Ruoshi, right, you're thinking too much. 13 dresses are nothing. It's not really making things difficult. Yanxuan has always had someone specially pick out the fish bones for him since he was a child. It's normal that he doesn't understand what it means for a man to give a girl a dress, but as his personal secretary, you should be more sensible in life than him. Don't you know that? Jiang Ruoshi hung her head in a panic and apologized repeatedly. Lu Yanquan has an extremely superior appearance, family background, and career. He is outstanding in ability and has lived a life like a shining star in the first half of his life. There are countless women who admire him over the years. He has always maintained his haughtiness and independence. Those women who tried to get close to him usually only saw his cold and distant eyes. He used to hold me in his arms on countless nights and whisper tenderly in my ear. He said that I was the most precious existence to him, but now everything has changed. In his eyes, I saw his concern for another woman. Lu Yanquan shook his head and smiled faintly. He took out a black card from his pocket and handed it to the leading salesperson. He walked unhurriedly to my side, put his arm around my waist, and looked deeply into my eyes, masked by the music. His pleasant voice rang in my ear. It's just a dress. I didn't expect you to care so much. It's a small matter to scare that young girl, but I'll be sad if you get angry and harm your health. His tone was relaxed and humorous, as if he was talking about an insignificant matter, easily shifting the topic away from Jiang Ruoshi. A sneer spread across the corners of my mouth. My slender white fingers twirled around his tie, pulling him closer bit by bit. Jiang Ruoshi has feelings for you. You're such a smart person, you can't not see that. I know you don't care about these 2 million yuan. This is the first time something like this has happened today, and I hope it will be the last time. The surrounding employees just thought we were flirting and burst into a lively chorus of catcalls at a distance where I could feel his breath. Lu Yanquan's face turned red, and his usually composed expression showed a crack. He frowned awkwardly. Shanhua, don't do this. What will it look like if our subordinates see this? Between me and Ruoshi, it will always only be a superior-subordinate relationship. Don't think too much. I snorted softly and released my fingers. It's easy to make him lose face, but I would also lose face. It's really beneath my dignity to be jealous of such a plain girl. I vented my anger, so I decided to let them off for now. After all, I don't have conclusive evidence of their ambiguous relationship. I took his arm and walked towards the stage to give an annual summary of this year's brilliant achievements. The secretaries of the branch general managers are all very shrewd. They happily held the dresses and didn't forget to show off in front of Jiang Ruoshi. We should thank you, Sister Ruoshi. If it weren't for you, sisters might never have the chance to wear such expensive dresses in our lives. In Mr. Lu's eyes, giving someone a dress is as simple as you giving a piece of candy to a child. You won't have any improper thoughts about Mr. Lu because of this, will you, sister? Your eyes and those dimples really look like TSK. No wonder Mr. Lu thinks highly of you. One after another, their faces were full of mockery, and their words were full of warnings. Jiang Ruoshi probably has never been humiliated like this in her life. Her head drooped lower and lower, and she felt extremely ashamed. Tears fell to the ground with a thud. She ran out with red eyes after the crowd dispersed, and didn't come back until the annual meeting ended. After dinner, we left tactfully early, allowing the young employees to truly relax and enjoy their night. As soon as I got in the car, I found that the passenger seat that belonged to me had been adjusted. There were also a few cute anime beauties pasted on the four corners of the sun visor. Except for me, no one dares to treat Lu Yanquan as a driver, and even less would anyone be so oblivious as to sit in the passenger seat. I didn't need to think to know who did it. An inexplicable anger suddenly welled up in my heart. Although I don't want to admit it, at this moment, I was really stimulated to the point where my scalp went numb and I lost my rationality. Even though I knew that Lu Yanquan gave my dress to Jiang Ruoshi, I just felt sorry for the dress. But now, she left her mark in my private space, which is a blatant provocation. In the 5 years of our marriage, this was the first time I was so angry. I wanted to slap Lu Yanquan, kick him out of the car, drive up to Jiang Ruoshi, and slap her hard twice. Just as I was about to question him, his phone rang. Lu Yanquan didn't notice my flushed face at all and calmly answered Jiang Ruoshi's call. I became irritable and started adjusting the seat. I only heard him say, "Okay, don't worry, I'll come right away." My hand stopped, and I slowly raised my head to look at him. Lu Yanquan frowned slightly. Ruoshi is returning that dress at the counter. She doesn't have the receipt, so I need to go there. Shanhua, I'll call the driver to pick you up. You go home first, I said in disbelief. Just for such a trivial matter, you're going to leave me behind? Shanhua, don't make things difficult for me. Okay, the girl has a strong sense of self-esteem. After being treated like this by you, she cried so much that her throat is hoarse, and now she just wants to return the dress. Does she have a strong sense of self-esteem, or is she deliberately provoking me in front of you? Can't she come and get it herself? Lu Yanquan pinched the bridge of his nose helplessly and let out a sigh. Shanua, is it interesting to make things difficult for a new employee? When did you learn to bully others with your power? You weren't like this before. The extremely angry emotion that had just filled me instantly dissipated, and what followed was infinite disappointment. I suddenly found it very funny, me bullying others with my power. Lu Yanxuan, you've never defended another woman in front of me, not even your mother. This is the first time. There was a hint of incomprehension on Lu Yanxuan's stern face. When we got married, we already agreed that for the reputation of the Lu and families, you wouldn't flirt around, and I wouldn't frequent nightclubs. Are you going to break the rules for that woman? Lu Yanxuan's gaze was profound and cold. After thinking for a long time, he still dialed the number of the family driver. Finally, he bent down to help me unbuckle my seatbelt and said to me in a calm tone, Shanua, you're always so assertive. We are husband and wife, not just strategic partners. Setting aside work, can't you be a bit more dependent on and obedient to me, like other wives? After dealing with Ruashi's matter, I'll stay at the Lu family's old residence for one night. We both need some time to calm down, so that's how it is. So he can't wait to show his masculine charm on another woman. But before, he clearly said that he most admired my resolute and decisive style. He's just tired of me and bored. Why does he have to find such a high-sounding excuse and put the blame on me? I got out of the car tactfully and watched the black Maybach drive out of my side. I gave him a chance, but he didn't cherish it. I picked up my phone and dialed my best friend's number. Xiaoning, help me draft a divorce agreement. I don't want to propose a divorce to Lu Yanxuan unless it's absolutely necessary. The elders of the Lu and families are lifelong friends. Lu Yanxuan and I were childhood sweethearts. It's just that he went abroad to study and pursue further education later, and we didn't contact each other for about 10 years. We met again at a banquet where the two families were preparing for an arranged marriage. He was polite and handled the questions raised by the elders with ease. Over the years, besides dealing with the affairs of the group, I've often frequented nightclubs and found male models to relieve stress. I thought that after not seeing each other for so many years, we would be unfamiliar and awkward. Unexpectedly, when I was alone with him, beneath his calm exterior, there was a humorous and witty soul. This made the familiar feeling from our youth instantly resurface. We were both in the rising stage of our careers, admired each other, and soon set the engagement and entered the marriage hall. After marriage, we held shares in each other's companies, and the Lu group and the In group had an unprecedented integration, so the division of property after a divorce would be an extremely troublesome matter. When I got home, I washed up, drank a cup of hot milk, and was about to go to sleep. My phone received a goodnight message from Lu Yanxuan. There was also a cute kissing emoji attached. Even during our Cold War, he still does everything properly. The next morning, when I went to work, I was almost knocked down by a young man with yellow hair downstairs in the company. My Hermes Himalaya bag slammed to the ground, and a piece of the leather was scratched off. The breakfast coffee in the young man's hand arched through the air and spilled onto the hem of my cashmere coat. Seeing this, the two security guards at the entrance immediately trotted over. They were scolding the young man for not looking where he was going. The young man was frightened. He panicked and picked up my bag and handed it to me. He took out a tissue and tried to wipe the stains on the hem of my coat. Seeing that he couldn't wipe the stains off, he got so anxious that he knelt down and begged for my forgiveness. It was a cold winter day, and he was only wearing a thin coat and sunglasses. Even so, it couldn't completely cover the bruises under his eyes. I ignored the stained coat and frowned, only feeling sorry for the scratched bag and carefully wiping it. Coincidentally, this scene was seen by Lu Yanxuan, who was used to going to work at the same time as me. The Lu group and the In group are only separated by a street. He stood on the opposite side, watching quietly with a stern and serious expression. For the first time, I saw disgust in his eyes. Probably in his opinion, my haughty posture was also a form of bullying others with my power. I ignored his misunderstanding, took 2 steps back, reached out to stop the approaching security guards, grabbed the young man's arm, and pulled him up from the ground. I don't know what difficulties you're facing, but a man's knees are worth gold. You can lose anything, but you can't lose your backbone. It's the only thing that truly belongs to you. The young man apologized and thanked me repeatedly while picking up the garbage on the ground. Finally, he ran away in a hurry. At the corner of the office building, he suddenly turned his head and the corners of his mouth curled up into a meaningful smile. I returned to my office, sat at my desk, and carefully examined the damaged bag. In fact, the scratched area is not large, and it's not even noticeable if you don't look carefully. But once a flaw appears, it is doomed to no longer be perfect, because it is precious enough. Even such a trivial flaw is too difficult to repair. What is even More difficult to repair than the bag is the relationship between Lu Yanxuan and me. The way he looked at me in the morning is still like a thorn piercing my heart. Lu Yanxuan and I always had our lunches delivered from the Lu family's small kitchen to my office, and he would come and eat with me. At 1 o'clock this noon, I thought he wouldn't come. Just as I opened the lunchbox, he arrived. Jiang Ruoshi was following behind him. Her eyes were red and swollen, and she kept her head down, looking respectful and delicate. I put down my chopsticks and just stared at them quietly. Lu Yanxuan sat down beside me and let out a sigh. Because of what happened last night, Ruoshi has been targeted and ostracized everywhere in the company. I picked up the spoon, scooped up some soup for myself, without even raising my eyes. So what? As the secretary of the president, can't she handle such a small matter? I was thinking that you should manage your people and stop making things difficult for this young girl. Due to a hidden business rule, we have each placed our own people in the other's company. Lu Yanxuan meant that my people were deliberately targeting Jiang Ruoshi to stand up for me. Last night's annual meeting was jointly held by the two groups, and almost all employees were present. It was inevitable that Jiang Ruoshi's behavior would be criticized. I stirred the spoon and took a sip of the soup. First, I didn't instruct anyone to target or ostracize your secretary. You should know. That's not my method or style. Second, for her situation today, if anyone is to blame, it can only be herself for being tactless and having no boundaries. Lu Yanxuan, you still don't understand human nature well enough. Your exceptional accommodation and tolerance towards her will sooner or later create one enemy after another for her. It's you who is harming her, not me. Jiang Ruoshi, who had been silent all this time, suddenly took 2 steps forward and said eagerly, "It has nothing to do with Mr. Lu, President, and I really didn't think things through yesterday. It was the first time I received such an expensive gift, and I was so excited that I offended you. I apologize to you." I was taken aback for a moment and then smiled. Lu Yanxuan, your secretary is really interesting. She can't understand what I'm saying, but she defends you more than anyone else. I didn't accept Jiang Ruoshi's insincere apology, nor did I step in to stop my people from targeting her. Jiang Ruoshi's grievances and tears stung Lu Yanxuan's nerves. For the first time, he lost his temper at me, smashing the soup bowl at my feet. He even asked me to apologize to Jiang Ruoshi. I didn't do anything wrong, so why should I apologize? Lu Yanxuan and I parted on bad terms that day. In the afternoon of the same day, Lu Yanxuan took Jiang Ruoshi on a business trip and left that place full of trouble. That night, I drank with my best friend. She complained that I lived too shrewdly, which was why a silly beauty like Jiang Ruoshi had caught Lu Yanxuan's eye. My mother passed away early, and my father never remarried. I was trained as the successor of the family since I was a child and carried the heavy responsibility of the family. The weakness of a woman would only hinder my progress. I can stick to my principles for 30 years without change. Why can't he? Lu Yanxuan, in the final analysis, he just doesn't love me anymore. I don't covet things that don't belong to me. I specifically went to the Lu group today to have a look at this secretary. TSK. At first glance, she's just like a pure and Nua figurine, especially her eyes and dimples. They are so similar to yours. I really don't understand what's going on in Lu Yanxuan's mind. Instead of cherishing the real you, he's trying to please a fake. Does he love you or not? I was so shocked by Xianing's words that all my drunkenness disappeared. No wonder I had a strange sense of familiarity when I first saw Jiang Ruoshi, as if through a layer of fog. Then I sneered, who knows, maybe the fake is more gentle, considerate, and understanding. My head hurt badly, and Xianing sent me home. She drove extremely smoothly throughout the journey because she was afraid that I would feel uncomfortable. The divorce agreement is ready. When are you going to bring up the divorce with Lu Yanxuan? At the middle of the month. He will definitely come back to have a meal with his grandfather. At the middle of every month, we would go back to the Lu family's old residence without fail to have a simple meal with the old man and the old lady. Divorcing Lu Yanxuan is not a trivial matter. I must use this time to make all the preparations for myself. Jiang Ruoshi hasn't been idle these days either. She updates her WeChat moments several times a day, having breakfast with the CEO, working overtime together until late at night, and standing on the most magnificent building in the city overlooking the land, experiencing skydiving for the first time, feeling the real underwater world for the first time, and witnessing the beauty of the aurora with her own eyes for the first time. The experiences and surprises that this business trip brought her are things she could never have in her whole life. The joy is almost overflowing in her WeChat moments. In the past, I was the only one who accompanied Lu Yanxuan to do these things. Now, the colleagues look at me with sympathy. Being very cautious, Lu Yanxuan allowed Jiang Ruoshi to disgust me in this way. It's really heartless these days. Xianing has almost been living with me, eating and staying together, and assisting the legal department in handling the financial division issue with Lu Yanxuan. One day, she stormed into my office, clutching a document bag in her hand. "Shanhua, this Lu Yanxuan is really going too far." I was signing a business document. Hearing this, I looked up and saw that Xiaoning was almost furious. "What's wrong? Is he back?" Xiaoning slapped the document bag on the desk. And a memory card and several photos of Lu Yanxuan and Jiang Ruoxi lying in a couple suite in a hotel slid out. Lu Yanxuan was shirtless, and the ambiguous red marks on his chest were particularly dazzling. "He's not back, but the pornographic photos are back first." My straight shoulders slowly slumped, and my heart felt as if it was being imprisoned by something, aching in waves. My slightly trembling fingers picked up the memory card and inserted it into the spare computer. At dusk, on the open air balcony on the top floor of the hotel, Lu Yanxuan held Jiang Ruoxi's face in his hands and looked at her almost obsessively. Behind them was the sky dyed orange-red by the setting sun. The evening glow was like a woven fabric, and the lovers were embracing each other, just like a touching picture spread out in the sky. When the two were about to kiss, I raised my hand and closed the computer. My voice also trembled uncontrollably. "Who sent these?" "It was a courier. The reception desk received it." I took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. I carefully put the photos back into the document bag and put it in the drawer before regaining my composure. "Don't spread this. Find out who sent the courier. Who else could it be? It must be that shameless Jiang Ruoxi. She's crazy about wanting to take my place." The angle of the video looks like it was secretly taken, not like it was staged. Well, it doesn't matter. What matters is that Lu Yanxuan is really tainted this time. Tomorrow is the middle of the month, and all these messy people and things should come to an end. The next day, Lu Yanxuan returned to the company and made an example of others at the morning meeting. He resolutely fired the 3 employees who had ironized Jiang Ruoxi the most severely earlier. 2 of them were my people. I'm not surprised that Lu Yanxuan is so blatant in protecting Jiang Ruoxi. After all, they have already slept in the same bed. What surprised me was that he actually brought Jiang Ruoxi to the family dinner in the evening. Jiang Ruoxi brought a lot of gifts for my mother-in-law during this business trip, all of which were good healthcare products. She catered to my mother-in-law's preferences and made her very happy. When she saw me coming, my mother-in-law asked someone to invite my father-in-law and Lu Yanxuan, who were talking in the study, to prepare for the dinner. She took my hand and started chatting about some trivial matters. Lu Yanxuan came to the dining room, glanced at me, and then looked away. Jiang Ruoxi followed behind him and sat beside him openly, which was the seat I usually sat in. Lu Yanxuan was stunned for a moment but didn't object. "After all, we haven't divorced yet, and we are still legally husband and wife. He keeps a female secretary by his side all the time, and now he has brought her back to the old residence and let her take the place that belongs to me. It's undoubtedly slapping me in the face." The triumphant look on Jiang Ruoxi's face was obvious. I was amused by this ridiculous scene. My mother-in-law took my hand and patted the seat on the other side of her, smiling kindly. "Come on, sit here. I made medicated fish maw chicken soup for you today. You must try more of it. It's very fresh." My mother-in-law is my mother's best friend and has always been very kind to me. Thinking of what I'm going to say next, a trace of sadness welled up in my heart, but I have no choice. Enduring humiliation is not in my character. I held my mother-in-law's hand back and patted the back of her hand. "Mom, I won't have dinner today. I came here because I have something very important to say." My mother-in-law's smile froze on her face. "Can't you wait until after dinner to talk about it?" "Shanhua." I shook my head, turned to look at Lu Yanxuan, and finally said what I had been holding in my heart for many days. "Dad, Mom, I want to divorce Lu Yanxuan." As soon as the words were out, the whole dining room fell silent. Even the aroma of the medicated food floating in the air suddenly became heavy. My father-in-law looked at me in disbelief. "Shanhua, divorce is not a joke, especially for you and Yanxuan. There are too many issues involved." "Yes, Shanhua, weren't you two always in a good relationship? What on earth is going on?" Lu Yanxuan slapped the table and stood up. His always cold face finally showed some emotion. "Shanhua, have you had enough of this nonsense? Just because I gave Ruoxi a dress, you've been making trouble with me until now and even want a divorce, after all these days, haven't you reflected on it at all?" My father-in-law slammed the table. "Shut up, Shanhua, you speak." "Lu Yanxuan, I originally planned to save you some face. Since you don't want it, don't blame me for being rude." I threw the stack of photos and the USB drive on the table. "Dad, Mom, take a look for yourselves." Lu Yanxuan snatched the photos, and his face instantly turned livid. His hand trembled, and the photos scattered on the ground, revealing the erotic scenes of Lu Yanxuan and Jiang Ruoxi in bed. My mother-in-law picked up one of the photos with trembling hands. and her eyes quickly turned red. Yanxuan, what? What is this? My father-in-law frowned tightly and stared at Lu Yanxuan with sharp eyes, waiting for his explanation. The veins on Lu Yanxuan's forehead bulged, and his eyes were full of anger. And Nua, I love and respect you, yet you actually fabricated these fake photos to frame me. Don't you care about our relationship of so many years? Do you really want to divorce me that much? I laughed out of anger. Me framing you, the photos can be faked, but there's also a video in this memory card. Do you want to watch it together? I and Nua have always been open and aboveboard in everything I do in my life. Even if I want to divorce you, I don't need to use such despicable means. My father-in-law was so angry that his face was tense, and he slapped the dining table, making a loud bang-bang sound. Yanxuan, you must give a reasonable explanation. Dad, don't you know what kind of person I am? Lu Yanxuan and I had some differences before, but I definitely wouldn't do anything to betray her. Lu Yanxuan seemed to think of something and turned to face Jiang Ruoxi, who was cowering in a corner. He pointed at the pile of photos on the ground, his eyes fierce, and squeezed out the words one by one through his teeth. Where did these photos come from? We clearly didn't do anything. Why are there such photos? Jiang Ruoxi's face turned as pale as paper, and she stood up. Trembling slightly, she looked at Lu Yanxuan, her face full of fear and panic. I don't know, Mr. Lu, please believe me. I really don't know why the photos ended up in President N's hands. Lu Yanxuan's eyes widened more and more, and he was so angry that he overturned the dining chair. He stepped closer to Jiang Ruoxi, his voice low and dangerous. What do you mean? Are you saying that these photos show things that actually happened? Why don't I know about it? Jiang Ruoxi stepped back again and again until her back hit the cold wall. She hugged herself helplessly with her hands, tears welling up in her eyes, and her voice was choked with sobs. Mr. Lu, don't do this. I'm scared. I only remember that day. You were drunk and looking at the sunset glow on the hotel balcony. Then you mistook me. Jiang Ruoxi looked at me with tears in her eyes, then lowered her head. For President N. You held me in your arms and kept calling President N's name. Then what? Keep talking. I tried to push you away. But you were so strong. Jiang Ruoxi shook her head desperately. I don't know. I really don't know why President N found out. Mr. Lu, you must believe me. I originally planned to keep this matter in my heart for the rest of my life. Lu Yanxuan's expression was blank for a moment, and he shook his head with a bitter smile. It's impossible. How could I not know what I've done? Maybe I mistook you for Shanhua for a moment, but I would never sleep with you, because you're not worthy, Lu. Yanxuan's words deeply hurt Jiang Ruoxi, and tears finally streamed down her face as if she had been greatly insulted. She ran away crying. Only then did Lu Yanxuan turn his head blankly and look at me with infinite sadness. Shanhua, please believe me. I didn't do anything to betray you. I looked back at him numbly. I don't care whether you did it or not. Anyway, we're getting a divorce. No, I don't agree. He rushed in front of me and tightly grasped my wrist. Shanhua, you know how much I love you. Why did I make an exception for Jiang Ruoxi? It's because I saw the shadow of your youth in her eyes and eyebrows. Even though she looks somewhat like you, I didn't do anything out of line, and I definitely wouldn't touch her. Please believe me. I didn't want to listen to his nonsense and raised my hand to interrupt him. But she's not me. Don't use my name to be affectionate and then blame me in the end. I don't doubt that you once loved me deeply, but I'm already 30 years old. I'm really not as young and beautiful as a girl in her early 20s. I'm assertive and domineering, and I'm not as gentle and considerate as others. Lu Yanxuan, admit it, you don't love me as much as you think you do now. It's just the responsibilities and shackles on you that force you to continue loving me. Since the original intention is no longer there, why force it? Let's let each other go and live freely. With every word I said, Lu Yanxuan's face grew colder. He stared straight into my eyes, seemingly trying to find a trace of me lying and a sign that there was still room for redemption, but my eyes were firm and clear, without the slightest wavering. The grip of his hand tightened a bit more, and he almost pleaded, Shanhua, that's just your judgment. It doesn't represent my thoughts. Please don't treat divorce as a joke. Don't make such a joke. I can explain all the recent things to you. I didn't want to take her on the business trip originally, she cried and begged me, saying that she would definitely be badly bullied in the company. The entertainment items she enjoyed were all provided by the cooperative party, and I didn't participate. Regarding this matter, consider it my fault. I apologize to you, Shanhua. I'm sorry for making you feel wronged. My original intention was just to use this business trip to give you a wake-up call, to make you realize that as a husband, I need a gentle, considerate, and understanding wife. I didn't expect Things to turn out like this, I frowned slightly, gritted my teeth, and pulled out my red and swollen wrist, sneering, "Sorry, you've got the wrong person, I will never be able to flatter a man." Then I took out a divorce agreement from my bag. I've tried my best to make the property division clear and fair. If you think there's no problem after reading it, just sign it. If you have any objections, I will also discuss it with you again out of respect for uncle and aunt. Lu Yanxuan couldn't accept it and gave a bitter smile as if deflated. If you can't do it, then you can't, but I won't agree to the divorce. I will also find evidence to prove that I never touched Jiang Ruoshi. It doesn't matter, I will file for divorce. Lu Yanxuan's eyes turned red, and he was in disbelief. He just couldn't figure out why, even though I loved him so much and he had already lowered his pride to apologize, I still insisted on getting a divorce. Lu Yanxuan was about to say something more when my father-in-law slapped the table and stood up. He gave Lu Yanxuan a look of disappointment and anger, then stormed back to the study. My mother-in-law was already sobbing uncontrollably. She covered her mouth with her hand, and tears trickled down through her fingers. "Yanxuan, Shanhua, how could you do this? How could such a thing happen in our Lu family, in just 5 years?" The once sensational wealthy family marriage and the grand wedding of the century had come to this. The former sweetness and trust had all vanished into thin air. I watched this scene coldly, with mixed feelings in my heart. Originally, we planned to have a child this year. I didn't go back to the small home I shared with Lu Yanxuan. Instead, I returned to my own villa. My father was living there and enjoying his retirement. I would come back to visit him every now and then. I told my father that I was going to divorce Lu Yanxuan. He was shocked for a while, and finally told me to make my own decision. Then he went back to his room and secretly called my father-in-law. In the past, whenever Lu Yanxuan and I had a minor conflict, they would secretly exchange information and try to help us maintain our relationship by dropping hints. But this time it was different. Seeing that I came back every day after work, my father knew that the situation had become extremely tense. He stopped walking his birds and drinking tea. He kept nagging every day about how good Lu Yanxuan was to him. I got tired of hearing it. "If he's so good to you've called him so many times in the past 2 days, has he answered any of your calls?" My father was speechless and choked up, looking at me helplessly. You must have abandoned him. He's so depressed that he's probably hiding somewhere." I was amused by my father's evasive look. He had been so worried about our matter these past 2 days that he even had 2 big blisters on his mouth. "Dad, stop trying so hard. I'm definitely getting this divorce, but don't worry, I promise this matter won't affect the long-standing friendship between you and uncle and aunt. You like that guy so much, aren't you disappointed or sad?" I patted my father on the shoulder. "After the divorce, I'll just consider him dead. I'll forget about him after the mourning period." My father's lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but he didn't. Finally, he left dejectedly, muttering to himself as he walked. Sigh. "I don't know if it's a good or bad thing to have pushed you to be so excellent. It's definitely a good thing to be able to control my own destiny." Lu Yanxuan didn't answer my father's calls because he had handed his phone to a professional to deal with in order to trace the source of those photos, and his people also flew to the hotel in the city where they had been on a business trip that day. It had been 3 days since then. This was the information sent to me by my best friend, Xiaoning. She would go to the Lu group on my behalf every day to ask Lu Yanxuan to sign the divorce agreement. Also, since the family dinner that day, Jiang Ruoshi had never appeared in the Lu group again. It's impossible to go back to the past. On the 5th day after Lu Yanxuan disappeared, I received a video from an unknown number on my phone. At first glance, it showed a very large open-air balcony. The video seemed to be taken from a long distance opposite the open-air balcony. The orange-yellow background looked somewhat familiar. Before I could click to see it clearly, that number called me. It was Lu Yanxuan who spoke. There was an unhidden excitement in his voice. "Shanhua, I told you I didn't touch Jiang Ruoshi. I found the hotel where we stayed. Unfortunately, the camera on the open-air balcony was maliciously damaged that day. I went to a great deal of trouble to buy this original video from a photography enthusiast. Those photos and videos were all made by Jiang Ruoshi's cousin using an AI software. It's that guy with yellow hair. Do you remember him? The guy with yellow hair, the young man with yellow hair who almost knocked me down that day." "Shanhua, I didn't do anything to betray you. Can we not get a divorce?" I tightened my grip on the phone and stopped thinking about the guy with yellow hair. My fingertips hovered over the video for 2 seconds, but in the end, I didn't click to play it. I spoke calmly. "Lu Yanxuan, is it only considered betraying me if you're caught in bed with someone else? Even if this video can prove your innocence, what's the use of it? When you gave the dress I reserved to Jiang Ruoshi, did you ever think I would be sad? When you left me on the road and went to help her out of trouble, did you ever think I would be embarrassed? when you took her on a business trip and indulged her in posting moments as if you were on a honeymoon together, did you ever think I would be criticized? You even took her back to the old residence and let her take the place that originally belonged to me. You said it was a wake-up call, but to me, it was more like an extreme humiliation. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. I'm sorry, Shanua. He sobbed softly and tried to suppress his voice. I know that no matter how I explain, I can't erase the hurt I caused you. I admit that the way I handled these things was selfish and stupid, and I ignored your feelings. But please believe that I never intended to truly hurt you, and I never thought of ending our marriage. Listening to his confession, I felt no ripple in my heart. The wounds will heal, but the scars will always remain. It's impossible for us to go back to the way we were. After Lu Yanxuan came back, he still kept dragging his feet and refused to sign the divorce agreement. My best friend Xiaoning directly occupied the bedroom in the inner room of his office. When she was hungry, she would eat his food. When she was sleepy, she would sleep in his bed from time to time. She would also share some of the latest gossip news with me. The police came to the Lu group today. I didn't expect someone as shrewd as you could be. That Vixen's cousin has been arrested, but unfortunately, the little Vixen got away. That Chanel dress was the bargaining chip for Jiang Ruoxi to test Lu Yanxuan's bottom line. It turned out that when Lu Yanxuan first saw Jiang Ruoxi, he had already hinted to the Human Resources Department to hire Jiang Ruoxi, who was average in all aspects of ability. Jiang Ruoxi fell in love with Lu Yanxuan at first sight. For the first half year, she was also very cautious and worked diligently to do her job as a secretary well. She heard that Lu Yanxuan was completely different at work and in life, especially at work. He was extremely strict with his employees, clear about rewards and punishments. A small mistake could mean being sent back to the grassroots level to start over. But when she spilled tea on important documents and put the wrong content in the meeting PPT, this decisive and powerful CEO not only didn't scold her but also comforted her softly, telling her to be more careful next time. It was not until she saw me, the legitimate CEO's wife, for the first time that she understood why Lu Yanxuan was so lenient towards her. It was also from then on that she started to feel hostile towards me. Later, her cousin with yellow hair owed a lot of money due to gambling and came to her. After learning about Lu Yanxuan's identity, he encouraged her to seduce Lu Yanxuan and take his place while she was young. Then he would have endless wealth to enjoy. Jiang Ruoxi thought that Lu Yanxuan had some feelings for her, so she used the Chanel dress to test Lu Yanxuan. Lu Yanxuan's exception for her gave her hope. On the night of the annual meeting, on the pretext of returning the dress, she took Lu Yanxuan away from me again, but Lu Yanxuan just helped her return the dress. He also conveniently reserved 2 runway models for the next quarter for me. Jiang Ruoxi's hope was instantly extinguished. She had to find a way to make Lu Yanxuan dislike me even more, so there was the incident the next day when the young man with yellow hair bumped into me, knelt down to wipe the hem of my clothes, and begged for my forgiveness. The guy with yellow hair was eager to get the money to pay off his gambling debts. He directly joined forces with Jiang Ruoxi in the hotel during the business trip and drugged Lu Yanxuan. They tried to force the situation to make Lu Yanxuan accept the fact and let Jiang Ruoxi take my place. Unexpectedly, Lu Yanxuan pushed her away with his last bit of consciousness. Later, the young man with yellow hair had to make fake photos and videos to make me angry, to make me take the initiative to give up my position. So when I threw the photos in front of Lu Yanxuan, Jiang Ruoxi gave that kind of explanation. Fortunately, with Lu Yanxuan's persistence, the truth was revealed. The guy with yellow hair was arrested on multiple charges, including gambling, extortion, theft, and endangering the personal safety of others, but Jiang Ruoxi was never caught. Hearing this news, I couldn't help but sigh. If Lu Yanxuan had been like he used to be, able to stay immune to the temptations around him, who can scheme against us. I went abroad for a period of time to study due to business cooperation. When I returned to China 3 months later, I heard the news that Lu Yanxuan had been in a car accident. Both of his legs were crushed, and he would have to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. The perpetrator, Jiang Ruoxi, she was finally sentenced to 25 years in prison for intentional injury causing serious damage. I couldn't understand. Didn't she like Lu Yanxuan very much? Was it really because she couldn't have him that she wanted to destroy him? When I got home, I found that my red Ferrari in the garage was missing. I asked my father for a long time before he was willing to tell me the truth. It was Lu Yanxuan who asked him to hide it from me. The red Ferrari was my favorite car, and I had it maintained on time every month during the days when I was abroad. It was Lu Yanxuan who took my car to the shop for maintenance. Jiang Ruoxi didn't know that I had gone abroad. She waited outside my house for a month and finally saw my car come out. She rented a second-hand car, stepped on the gas, and crashed into it without hesitation. Since the incident between Jiang Ruoshi and her cousin was exposed, her family and friends had cut off relations with her. She was mocked by her colleagues and blacklisted and erased from the industry. She couldn't accept such an ending and blamed all her misfortunes on me. The person she had always wanted to kill was me. The next day after I returned to China, I went to the hospital with a flower basket. Lu Yanxuan was living in the VIP ward of the inpatient department. No one was allowed in except medical staff. I knocked on the door of the ward, and Lu Yanxuan's calm but suppressed voice came from inside. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, his eyes were full of doting, and he was very satisfied with his work. Yanxuan, it's me. Separated by the door, neither of us made any more sounds. Finally, Lu Yanxuan asked the nurse to bring out 2 documents for me. One was the signed divorce agreement, the other was a share transfer contract. He wanted to hand over the Lu group to me later. I went with his trustee to get the divorce certificate, but I didn't dare to accept his company. My father said he would break my legs if I did. A year later, I met Lu Yanxuan, who had fitted with prosthetic legs. He returned to the workplace, and we became the most familiar strangers. The end.